Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to round 4 of the SimRacing.Club GT3 Endurance Championship. You join us at Portland today. I believe it's been a little bit damp so far, and we have got quite the race coming up for you guys. The championship, as it stands, we have the Burst Esports car, number 49 in the lead, 35 points clear of Williams Esports Ben Q. Then behind them on 88 points is Evolution Motorsports. So a relatively big gap, but it wasn't the Burst Esports team that won last time out at Imola. Oh, sorry, no, it was the Williams Esports team that actually won at Imola last time out. However, that car, I believe, has been withdrawn. I know one of the Williams cars has been withdrawn, but you can see the championship standings as I was just talking about there. Go Team in 4th with Pinsim Drillers in 5th, followed by Nita Velix. Scuderia Basileia, Nita Velix again, that's the number 30. Core Team, Williams Esports Chill Blast, the Wanaco number 3, followed by Pescara ATP Also Tyler. Then Speedy Mike Racing number 92. Volante Racing number 66, currently on 40 points. And Core Team with HM Engineering behind them. Undercover Sim Racing, followed by the other core team car of number 62, then Revo Satellite, number 64, with ProSim Tech rounding out the top 20 on 31 points. So we will be getting started quite soon. And it's been an interesting championship so far. Portland as well, a very short track, so we're going to be watching out for those blue flags. And there has been a bit of discussion about them in the past few weeks. So that is going to be very interesting. Of course, if you disrespect blue flags, you will be slapped with a penalty by the stewards.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a interesting track. It's quite tight, quite tricky, and also we're using the chicane in turn 1 and 2 as well. So that's going to make overtaking quite difficult because obviously it pinches you right on the apex as well. So I think this track's going to provide quite an interesting point as we get to the middle part of this season, but certainly as you see on the championship, Burst Esport are looking pretty good, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to be up towards the front as ever with Yanis Simicic.
Yeah, and we've got ProSim Tech Black there, 21st, Scuderia Mascala 22nd, Pinsim Drillers next, followed by the Speedy Mike car, Ramada Motorsport, then the other Speedy Mike car, number 93, Pushrod Racing, then Blackbirds Racing, One Move Esports, Absolute Motorsport on 18 points, tied with Trillion Donut Automotive, then Seawolf Net Race, Caspian Motorsport, Flying Goat, the Soul Mercedes, Varga Sim Racing, Omicron Sim Racing, Joy Racing with HM Engineering just ahead of Ground Effect Sim Racing, but they're both on 0 points.
There's quite a few 0 points out there because obviously there is a classification that you have to finish during the races as well. So even if you show up to the races, that's not enough to get points. You do obviously have to get, well, first of all, into the points paying positions, but also you've got to get far enough in the race. And obviously during a 3-hour race, that is still quite a big distance. As you see on the screen here, got the drivers just finishing their warm-up session. And obviously this race being halfway through the season as well, after this race, we're going to see in the championship who's really going to be the main contenders as we get towards the second half of the season as well, because that's obviously going to be the main talking points as we get to Indianapolis next time out as well. So that's going to be good thing to look out for. But it seems like there's a couple of teams at the top that are pulling away a little bit, as some of the teams are missing a couple of races, such as Williams with their Chill Blast car. They only just showed up to the last race of the season. Third race of the season. And in their other car, in the Ben Q car, they're not here today. So that's really going to open up that middle top part of the championship.
Yeah, definitely. But the Williams Ben Q car being away is going to help that Burst Esports car because they're already 35 points clear of second place to third place. It's 52 points, which is over a win away. So this is going to be very beneficial for Burst Esports, and we'll see how they capitalise on that. As you can see, the qualifying order just at the bottom there.
Yes, we've got Burst Esport on pole position, Yanis Simicic in the car, followed by Williams Esport and Hubert Brzezinski. Then we've got Nita Velix and Evolution Motorsports, and then the other Nita Velix with Pescara as well. So that top six is really the main top six of of the standings that we are seeing from most of the people. And then we end up with Drillers Esports, Go Team Racing, Wanaco as well. One move in there, Scuderia Mascala, Pro Simtech Core Team Racing, Undercover Sim Racing, Seawolf Net Race, Speedy Mite Racing, both Speedy Mite Racings there, as well as Scuderia Bazelia. Then we got Core Team Volante Racing, Absolute Motorsport, Speedy Mite Racing. Again, they got quite a few cars in this championship, GT3 Endurance Series here. I've got Pushrod Racing, Blackbirds Racing, Joy Racing, HM Engineering, rounding out the top 28. And we do actually have 33 cars here. So I have another couple of pages for you. Got another core team car. They've also got 3 entries here. We've got Caspian Motorsports, Flying Goats, Omicron Sim Racing, and then unfortunately, right at the back of the grid, we've got the Revo Satellite Racing team. I think, Hugo, this is going to be quite an interesting race, with the rain is going to be certainly coming to be a factor as well. So I'm not going to be surprised if there's a few incidents here or there as well.
It can really shake things up as well, but also you've got the new start procedure, isn't it? With the teams can go as soon as the race director says they can go. So as soon as he starts saying green, no matter where they are, they don't have to be past the start-finish line. They can start overtaking. Into turn 1, though, it's going to be very interesting, because I know this trial method, if it doesn't work, they may have to go to single file starts. Hopefully the drivers just are a little bit sensible as we head into the first chicane, though. But you can see the barrier's very tight. It's going to be close.
It certainly is. And we have the 2 main contenders on the front row as well. But Yanni Simchich has also got that outside line. So now we wait for the race director's call. And once they go green, all of the 33 cars are going to be going for the 3 hours of Portland here for round 4 of the GT3 Endurance Series. And as we come onto the main straight, anytime now, we'll call green flag and we'll be going racing here for the 4th round. And we go green flag just as they get to the start-finish line. Yanni Simchich is pulled away into the lead, but that battle for second place is going to be 3-4 wide coming into turn number 1 and 2. Evolution Motorsports have got in there. Williams Esports have gone around, and now Night of Alex have got up into second place as well. So certainly some carnage happening there in the first sector of the race. Francesconi for Pescara has got up into 4th place as well. So positions changing left, right and centre. The main talking point, though, is that Williams there got spun around. Kuba Brzezinski got maybe even 4 wide there into turn number 1. Didn't have too many places he could go. Now as we're coming through Sector 2 as well, even Mascala have got up into the top 10, but now out onto the back straight. Yernis Simčić is still leading the way from Kristen Michel, but the main talking point, as we said, is that Williams have now been spun around, and that could be huge, not only for this race, but for the championship, as they were already a couple of races behind.
Yeah, definitely. They won last time out, but this is not the start they will be wanting, especially with such a competitive grid. For Burst Esports, though, it couldn't have gone better. They're still holding on to that first place. But I think it was 3 wide behind the leader, something had to give, and it was the Williams car that gave. And we've got a bit of shuffling around the order in the left-hand side there. Yene Simicic setting the fastest lap so far, but he has got Christian Michel behind him for the Cetrez car. This is for Ferris Stanley on the HM Engineering. No, in the HM Engineering, sorry. Following Timotei Antonovsky in the Pinson Drillers, both in the same car, which has been hit by BOP, because the other cars, the Corvette and the BMW, still quite strong after the BOP introduction from the last race, but hopefully we'll see a bit more competition from the other cars. Now, here we have Michael Francesconi in front here in the Pescara car. He is chasing, but he's got about as big of a gap behind him as he does in front of him. As you can see in the bottom right, he's got Joachim Stesnes behind him, just 3.5 tenths of a second as they head through this little left and right flick onto the main straight. You can see quite a few cars in the pits there then, so has there been a fair amount of contact?
Yeah, there was definitely some contact in the back. Linus Lundvall for the number 47 Seawolf Net Race, he lost his rear wing. There were some collisions in that Sector 3. I think there's about 8 cars actually in the pit lane. But as you can see, because the lap is so short, they've actually lost a lap already just on that first lap of the race, and that's going to be so crucial. As we always know, even in endurance racing, when the laps and the races are so long, you need to keep on the lead lap where possible, and that is going to be a big comeback for those drivers there. But looking at Williams, Brzezinski's already got back up into 16th place. He was as low as 22nd at one point, I saw. So he's already made up over 6 positions on that first lap and a half of him coming back. So I do think we're going to be able to see him get back up into the decent points. It just depends how quickly he can do that. And it looks like the window wipers are on. So Hugo, I think the rain is starting to come already.
Yes, and we've already had 1 penalty for Visions, but yeah, the rain already arriving. This could be the saving grace for those cars in the pits, or will it be damaging for them, because they're going to have to come back into the pits now and strap on the wet tyres when it comes to that situation. But we're riding on board with Jone Simičić here for the start of the race in his first eSport car. You can see into turn 1, he managed to hold onto the apex and ride over the curb. But it's what happened behind him as Jürgen Stesnes gets a penalty. Leon Bock then came out in 3rd place. Christian Michel did have a look up the inside line of that lead car, but he just couldn't quite make it. Yuri Vishluvel as well getting penalties. So quite a few penalties being handed out up and down the order. But these laps cars with the blue flags, because it's such a short lap, and Mathieu de Croo also getting a penalty. So I'm not sure what's going on there. It might be the slicks on the slightly damp surface now, which is going to be quite difficult for the drivers.
Yeah, I would assume that's already some track cuts coming through. That's really the main place that these guys are going to be getting penalties. Obviously, the other way is speeding in the pit lane. But if they're getting those cut tracks already, then that is really going to be a struggle, because there's still 2 hours and 55 minutes left for these guys to go through, and they're just going to keep on getting penalties if they are cutting. Unfortunately, there are a couple of corners here where it is a little bit easy to do that, such as that final corner. But yeah, not ideal, especially for Stesnes, who's in 5th place at the moment. So he's going to be dropping way down. As we see someone here trying to get out of the way, that's going to be very awkward. That's Pushrod Racing trying to get out of the way of all of the leaders, and they're just going to get blue flags and just going to keep on letting these guys through. So that is always someone. He's got a bump there, I think.
Yeah, I think he got hit by the Nita Velic's car in the rear there, which has cost him 3 positions as a result of that, because you can see they all sailed straight past him. Did he just contact the rear of that BMW as well? I'm not sure, but he's back alongside. Oh, he has hit the inside of that Nita Velic's car. That is really interesting. But you can see the rain as well, so this is going to get quite hectic quite soon.
Yeah, fortunately for these GT3 cars who have an rFactor 2, you can stay on the slicks for a little bit. It's not like you have to pit straight away as soon as it starts raining. They will be able to go some laps, maybe even towards 15-20 laps around here, because it is so short. They will be able to stay out until it gets just simply too wet that they need the displacement of the wet tyres. So I wouldn't be surprised if these guys stay out for quite a while, especially as the strategy is so important. Even in the 3-hour race, you only want to make 2 pit stops around the 1 hour and then the 2-hour mark. So if you start pitting now, that could get you out of cycle and in a bit of an awkward situation.
Yeah, the strategy is going to be really interesting as well. That the rain came just after the first lap, pretty much. So everyone started on the slick tyres, I believe. But that is, yeah, really throwing a spanner into the works. As you said, they're not going to have to pit immediately. But what this does to strategy is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and those just being informed that those penalties coming in were actually the ones from the previous round. There was a number of penalties, which is something that's a little bit unusual, because there hasn't actually been too many IRRs, even when this championship was known as VLMC last year. Sean Jacobs is generally quite getting the guys racing quite well. Aren't often too many penalties, but there are a few last time out at Imola, so that's what they are being served. So they got drive-through penalties from that last race. As we're now on board with the number 33, Ferris Stanley, coming out onto the start-finish straight. This car's doing really well up into 5th place at the moment behind Pescara. They've been struggling quite a bit, has this H Engineering car. Currently no points on the board at all, whereas Pescara are doing fairly well, up in 12th place in the championship. So this would be really good. Obviously it's very early in the race, but this would certainly be a good place if Ferris Stanley can keep his car there.
Yeah, definitely. 5th place is phenomenal. Of course, he's got 2 hours and 50 minutes to hold it there alongside his teammate, but he's piling on the pressure to Michael Francesconi for the Pescara car. But that number 3, oh, and here you see the Jonathan Provost in the undercover sim racing car, and you can see the effects of the wet track on these cars. There's been quite a few hairy moments for multiple drivers, but Jerome Priolo, as here as Ferris Stanley round the outside, managing to hold on to that quite nicely. Francesconi, though, can he try and get back at that position? No, Stanley pulling away, keeping that inside along the right-hand curved turn 9 into turns 10 and 11. Through the final turn, he's done a very good job at taking that, and that was Cessna's, I think, off the track. Yeah, I saw him have a hairy moment earlier where he had to save it, but that is not ideal. Clearly struggling quite a lot, and he's going to be pulling into the pits after that.
And that's not going to help him, considering I assume he's coming in to serve his drive-through penalty as well, so that is not what you want to happen. I do wonder if there was maybe some contact with another driver there, because it is a little bit weird to spin like that. However, as you mentioned with Prevost here also coming into the pit lane, it starts getting a little bit difficult when you're really pushing to the limit. As we see a number of drivers coming in, actually what looks like potentially for some tyre changes actually already, which is quite interesting. I would have expected some of these drivers to go well into the sort of 10, 15, maybe even 20 lap margin before they start coming into the pit lane, but some of these drivers are clearly struggling a bit already.
What it will mean, though, is that these drivers pitting now will be safe in that final sit. It'll be less necessary to do fuel saving, but the rain has come down thick and fast, and it has not worked out too well for Stesne. It's just in front of Slobodian, who we're following now, the Aston Martin against the McLaren. But you can see getting quite close behind. He's going to have a look around the outside. However, along here, the outside takes you a lot longer than the inside. But into turn 10, he's nowhere near to make that move. We did have yellow flags momentarily in sector 3, and we got them again. I don't think that's anything major, but Slobodian will be trying to get that position off Stesne as soon as possible.
A number of cars coming into the pit lane now, and it's really starting to hammer it down here. The rain has come in, and it has not stopped so far. The leaders, just for reference, are doing sort of mid 1 minute 13s, and some guys a bit further down are also still in the 13s as well. So that looks like to be the pace that they're doing. But we'll have to see those guys on the wet tyres. Can they go quicker than a 13, or can they at least stay there? As obviously these dry tyres are going to get worse and worse as it gets even more wet on that racing line. And that's really the main balance of how you have to look at the wet. It's not just how much is coming down, what the intensity is, it's what is the actual racing line like, because if it does stop raining as well, it will start getting drier and drier, and that could be quite an interesting factor for those guys as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see someone going very deep into turn 1 there. Christian Michel, though, he's got Leon Bock behind him. You can see he's struggling a little bit, maybe just the grease as well as the curves upsetting the car slightly. But with the weather, no one can predict it. It is the live feed from Portland, which is having this effect. And what is going to be interesting now is that, and you can already see it happening, we've got loads of cars already on very different laps, which just means there's many more chicanes essentially to navigate if you're the faster car. Hopefully they get out of the way quick enough, but there are going to be lots of blue flags all over the track, and that is definitely going to throw a spanner into the works.
Yeah, blue flags is going to be a huge factor for these cars at the front, as we see here with Christian Michel getting past another car. There's Francesconi has got a penalty, unless he maybe had another one, which I don't think he had. So that is potentially from last race as well. Yeah, he actually had 2 last race. So yeah, he's going to have to come in for that. But yeah, for these drivers at the front, like Christian Michel, we just saw there, getting through this traffic is going to be the main factor for them, because we only have a single class race, but obviously blue flags are still going to be very crucial with where you lose and gain time compared to your fellow competitors around you. And so far, Simičić seems to be doing fairly decent, as he's got almost a 3-second lead at the front there, so he's certainly very comfortable in these conditions.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the major gap right now is between 3rd and 4th, because you can see Christian Michel, I think it's Michel, I'm not quite sure anymore, but he's clear of Leon Bock by a couple of seconds. However, you can see behind that gap between Leon Bock and Stanley behind him, very close. You can see it just off in the distance here. But Stesney's also just got another penalty. Now, I would say that that's from last race. However, it is possible that he's already built up enough off tracks, because I believe it's 5, then you get the penalty. And we've seen him off track a couple of times now.
And especially when you go for a little spin like he did, sometimes you can, unfortunately, pick up ones from that as well, where you're sort of leaving and rejoining the track at awkward angles and things like that. So yeah, hopefully that's not happened for him, because that could be quite awkward. Because as you say, it's every fifth one you end up getting another drive through, and these just add up. And as we've seen already with the traffic, it is getting absolutely chaotic out there. As we're looking at Simon Marshall now driving for Joy Racing, they have not had as much as a bit of a pun. They haven't had much joy so far this season in that number 99. The Bentley isn't the best car in the world with the BOP, so that probably doesn't help them as well. But now they're fighting Andre Muscala, which is doing pretty well, because that Muscala car has struggled a little bit so far this season as well. Both Andre and Christian, the two brothers in there, they've been doing pretty well, but they're not the most experienced guys in the world, so they're using this to learn a little bit. But this is some decent, decent points that they're still fighting for here in about 12th and 13th place.
Yeah, I believe that's Marshall's this is Simon Marshall's debut race as well. But here is the onboard from Jerome Priolo in that flying goat car, and is that Bentley ahead of him having a little bit of a moment? Not sure, but this gap 1.2 seconds. The Boatley right at home, if you take its name literally. But yeah, this is Simon Marshall. Now he's got Masasuyi Emunwen behind him. Now that's going to be quite frightening in the mirrors. That Porsche, the Speedy Mike car, really quite close. And I think he'll be making that move for 13th place imminently.
I think he will as well. Simon Marshall is obviously maybe having a couple of issues here and there, but he's also... This is the same Simon Marshall, and there's not two of them. He's the team manager of Rookie Monsters. So interesting that he's obviously driving for a different team here, but trying to get some fun in. And it looks like he's going to let Umemwen through, potentially. A bit of a weird line that he was taking there through the back straight, and he's actually given up that position. So maybe he's struggling a little bit, or he just doesn't want to fight anyone at the moment. He wants to keep it on that grey stuff. So obviously going for spins isn't going to be helping you too much as we get further into the race. But you can see already, he is the last driver on the lead lap. 15th place. The HM Engineering car behind him is already lapped, and we're only 15 minutes into this race.
Yeah, I think I'll clarify that this is his GT3 debut. In the GT3 series, in case that confused anyone. But the thing with the back straight is it's not very straight, which means if you're on the outside line, you've got to travel a fair bit more distance. Well, not a fair bit, but a little bit more distance than the car on the inside, which can really have a difference when you are running side by side through there. So I think that's quite a big effect, and that's one of the reasons why Emunwen managed to get through. So you've got to be careful on that exit, trying to hold the inside through turn 9, just keeping it stuck to the right hand side. But here we have Ferris Stanley catching up to Leon Bock. That gap just 1 second, although Bock is beginning to pull away now, because that gap was about 4/10 a few minutes ago. But this Bentley really making himself present behind.
Yeah, certainly a big car is that Bentley. And I thought he was going to go for a little bit of an awkward dive bomb, because that is another thing with these blue flags. These guys that are being lapped, they're not necessarily slow. It's just because of the nature of the track, with it being so short, and they're in their own battles as well. And yes, obviously the rules say that they need to let them past. It's not the easiest track to do that either, so you're always going to get a couple of awkward situations. And that did look a little bit interesting for the undercover in that huge Bentley, but it seems he is not doing anything too bad at the moment, although obviously that HM Engineering car in fourth place is going to be not liking this, with Ferris Stanley at the wheel. He wants to try and get onto the podium, and he's got someone in 14th, 15th place trying to battle with him.
Yeah, now he's that as well. The Bentley has got someone coming up quite close behind him as well. But here we've got Yuri Vishluva up the inside, I believe, unless that's Redek into turn one. Yeah, that's sick. He's got that position off of the. Oh no, that was a laps car. I think he's just gone past the gap half a second though. This is some really close racing already, and of course those penalties really shuffling things up as that Corvette ahead having a bit of a moment. That's had to really squeeze the BMW to the inside. And we're going to ride on board now with Radek in his Callaway Corvette into the right-hander. Yeah, you can see he's gone quite deep there. I think, he was letting the car behind through. But when everyone has done that pit stop, people might start returning to the same lap, as here's the undercover car racing Pedro Delgado. He's actually gone behind because at the start of the lap, Delgado was behind the undercover car, but they have swapped positions. The traffic playing a bit of a role there as side by side through that is not what you want to see. That is really, really tight. Can Provost, though, get the exit down? He's going to be close behind that McLaren of HM Engineering. However, I don't think he's quite got the speed to take that position just in a straight line alone, but he is really making himself present behind that McLaren.
Oh, there's a car from the background. That's the satellite car in the older style Bentley. He has gone for a bit of a spin in the background, unfortunately. Let's try to see who's at the wheel of that one. But yeah, that is not the best thing for them. There's David Nichols in the background as we get a replay here of Provost having a bit of a battle here into that final sector. He's going to go a little bit over that grass, and as you go over the first one, you just get bounced off the other side. And yeah, this is where he obviously lost a bit of time there and ended up battling with the... Oh, he actually tapped the wall there a little bit coming back on, and then he battled the HM Engineering McLaren. And now once again, they're going to go to battle down the front straight.
Yeah, and that's not going to help with those incident points. It looks like they're going to start racking them up quite quickly. Is the slipstream enough for him to gain that speed along the main straight? It doesn't look like it. I think that they're pretty much equally matched in straight line speed, and it's going to have to be into one of the turns that Provost takes this position. Although he's hanging it quite close on the exit of the first chicane, flashing his lights, trying to distract Delgado, but he just doesn't seem to be able to make his way through. And the track, to be honest, doesn't lend itself too much to making overtakes, given how narrow it is. And you can see here, he is really up close behind. Is there going to be a mistake from Delgado? Not quite, but you can just see how big that Bentley is, especially when it's right behind you. But yeah, Provost, he's sliding around a bit. He's really pushing to try and get past this McLaren. He just isn't finding the opportunity. Although along the back straight, this could be it. He's riding quite close behind into the final couple of turns. Is he going to be able to make that position, or will he make the same mistake as last time? Under brakes through the left-hander and the right-hand kink into the hard right-hander for the final turn, back onto the straights, and it looks like he's had a bit of a slide on there as well.
We've got Radek Cirque here for Core Team Racing, and into turn 4, he's just gone a little bit too far, gone onto that grass, and yes, it's slippy enough as it is, letting in some water on top of it, so he went for a bit of a spin there, and that is so easily done, especially in that turn 4 corner. It's a lot quicker than you would imagine, but it's also a lot tighter than you would imagine. The track really gets nice and narrow here. You've got to be very careful. There's no sort of runoff or anything. It's just a bit of off-camber grass if you get your wheel into it. And now on board with Mark Weitz, you see the battle that this is forming ahead of him. We've got another car, that's I think the Omicron, Aston Martin getting involved as well, though I think he's a lap down from these guys. And I've got the Flying Goat with Mark Weitz sending it down the inside of the hairpin. He's going to get past there on the Flying Goat. Coming now onto the backstroke, still got Omicron involved here. But this has given Provost and Delgado a little bit of breathing space between them, between these two battles now. It was a 4-car battle, it's now into 2-2s. But that was a decent overtake there by Mark Weitz, getting down the inside of the hairpin, and that is a position up into the points in 15th place.
Yeah, and he was quite lucky to avoid that Aston Martin on the exit because they were quite tight, but he managed to make it work. He's taken that position. Now we can see the undercover car of Provost down the inside of Delgado into turn 1. Is he going to be able to make that position? We'll see on the leaderboards, but Priolo still trying to make that time back up to Mark Vaete, and this is Mark Vaete on board now. So he's already closed up to Delgado and Provost. Provost retaking 13th position off the HM Engineering car, but it is going to be quite interesting to see who comes out on top of this battle and who manages to spread the gap a little bit. It looks like Vaete is on some good pace at the moment. He's already pulling away from Priolo quite rapidly. Can he keep this momentum up for the next 2 cars in front of him?
Yeah, he's certainly looking like he's got some pace at the moment as they come around this back straight, which, as you say, it really is a corner. I believe, in fact, on the track map, it's known as turn 9, such is the way of it bending around there. Bit of a weird section as well, because it's almost like a street track, as you have the wall on one side, then it opens out into this final chicane and hairpin sequence, now out onto the start-finish straight. And obviously we're using the what is known as the full course with the chicane in turn 1 and 2 as well, so it makes it a little bit difficult to overtake into it, but it's really the exit and then coming up into turn 4 that you need to focus on. Get this exit nice as you come out of turn 2 and see if you can do something as you come towards the middle sector.
Yeah, and this is quite a good camera angle to show you just what these drivers are seeing as well. Going into turn 1, you can see how much narrower it gets from the main straight onto the rest of the track, and that's off the track goes Delgado. That's Mark Vaete then taking the position. He's got a Bentley right up behind him. That's P31 though, so he's not battling that 4th position. But yeah, Vaete up into 14th. It'll be interesting to see what happened to Delgado, whether it was just by his own driving that he went onto the grass. Maybe there was a little bit of contact. It's not entirely clear, but yeah, this Bentley, although it's in P31, is still keeping up very well with this Corvette and making himself known. Now, with the blue flags, the drivers can get past as long as they pull away, but if they fall back within blue flag range, they've got to return the position within 4 turns, but that is contact. The lapped car hitting the inside of Mark Vaete, and he is not going to be impressed by that.
Yeah, a little bit of an awkward situation there. That chicane is very... well, yeah, just awkward in general. It's not the nicest thing at all, and unfortunately does create some incidents. It's going to get a bit of a replay here with Mark Vaete coming up through turn 3 into turn 4. And he's obviously following Delgado in the HM Engineering, and we're going to see him go just a little bit wide there, so Mark Vaete sticks it up the inside. In fact, Delgado getting on the grass there, allowing the crop to come through as well, which obviously leads on to what we saw in the chicane.
Yeah, lucky to get that back on track, but he slightly overcooked it, and that did give Vaete the perfect opportunity he needed. Now you got Slobodjan here. He's got Francisconi behind him 1 second, and ahead 1.5 seconds is Timotej and Donovsky for Pinsim Drillers. You can see just ahead there the car in front, obviously the Corvette. This is an Aston Martin, so I think we've got a 3-car battle, because behind it's a BMW, although there is a Bentley that's P19 it looks like, trying to get past as well. So this is what we were talking about earlier with the blue flagged cars, the lapped cars still being on a similar pace to the other drivers. He has let these guys through now, but Francisconi is closing up quite quickly. That gap now only 6/10. Slobodjan now 2 seconds behind the Pinsim Drillers car. So this could be the move that Francisconi is going to be making, taking P8. It's not looking to be in Slobodjan's favour right now.
Yes, certainly not that, and that car in general, not just the fact that they're in an Aston Martin, but that team in general hasn't had the best season in either the GT3 Endurance Series or the Virtual Endurance Championship. So this is looking to be a good position for them at the moment, but Francisconi started the race really well, dropped back a little bit, is now trying to come back, and he has actually made that move down the inside, but can he make it stick on the apex? Yes, he can, so he gets that move there up into 8th place. And that Pescara car, number 8, is now up into 8th position.
It was a good move there. He's already pulled off quite a big gap. Slobodjan's line obviously compromised into the first chicane. If you don't get that on the racing line, it costs you a lot of position, as you can, a lot of time, as you can see there. Oh, and that is big contact from the lapped car. He's onto the grass. Can he get it back on track? He's definitely going to lose the position to Slobodjan. Let's see what happened here, though. Yeah, he's lost. He's 1.5 seconds down now, and that was not what I think he expected when he was trying to get past that Aston Martin.
Yeah, that's just how the traffic can come into play. We've seen it 3-4 times already in the opening 30 minutes here in Portland. It's going to be that way all the way through the race. These drive always the Omicron car once again is going off, and that could be a big spin for them into the wall if they're not too careful. That could be a race-ending move, but I'm sure Francesconi isn't going to be best pleased with that. But once again, now another lap gone, and he's still on the back of Sebastian coming into turn number 1. Can he do the same as what he did one lap ago on the inside of turn 1? It seems that BMW has very good straight line speed actually compared to Volante, although he goes really wide, and that is going to be him losing the position again. So Francesconi, from one reason or another, is struggling a bit here to keep that 8th place.
Yeah, he has got the pace to get past the Vosjan, but he's just, well, first he was unlucky, secondly it just didn't go too well. But this is what we're going to see from on board with the Omicron car in front. So it moves left, so looks like it lets him through, but it just hits the rear of that BMW and sends him off. Lucky not to spin. A lot of room not to hit the barrier, but it's just going to cost a lot of time and be very frustrating for the Pescara ATP Auto Tyler team.
Yeah, not ideal for them. They are a very, they're one of the better teams we've got here, but they haven't had the best races so far, which is why they're down in 12th place in the championship. I would say they're definitely a lot better than that, getting well inside the top 10. But obviously you've got to make the results count when you get them. And someone, or in general the team that has done that so far this season, is Burst Esport. Interestingly, they've had different pairings of drivers in the first 3 races of the season, so we'll have to see who joins up with Yerny Simčić this time when they get to the driver swaps later, because obviously remember each of these teams does have to do a mandatory driver swap at some point during this race. And Burst are obviously leading the championship as well, so they've done that very well. And now Yerny is leading by almost 6 seconds. That has gone up and down a little bit over the course of the race, but at the moment looking about 6 seconds, and he's already lapped everyone up until 12th place.
Yeah, that Burst car just absolutely phenomenal so far this season, and proving their worth once again today. Of course, we're only 1/6 of the way through the race. There's a long way to go, but if they can keep up this momentum, they could have quite a safe victory in their hands. Now we've got Francesconi again. That's 2-second gap though to Bart Sebastian in the Volante car. Yeah, it hasn't been going too well for the Pescara team and for Francesconi so far today, but now we've got Mark Veit, who has got past the undercover sim racing car and is now in 13th. So he did manage to make his way from behind those 3 that are now behind him, all the way up in front of them. So he's got a lot of pace, and this is the Caspian Motorsport car in the pits.
Yeah, I wonder how they ended up there. It's a bit of an odd time to be pitting, with it being halfway through an hour. So maybe that is for some wet tyres as well, because remember, it started raining pretty much straight away. And I did say a lot of the drivers were going to be going very far before even thinking about making a pit stop, and it seems actually that a lot of them are staying out. The leaders are still doing sort of mid 14s, maybe getting into the 15s as well. So it's only about a second a lap slower than what it was near the beginning of this hour where it started raining. So it's not it's not too uncommon that they stay out there, because obviously you don't want to make a pit stop if you don't have to. They're just going to go until they run out of fuel.
Yeah, and that was Leon Bock there, not quite taking the racing line through turn 1. I'm not sure if that cost him a position though. We're going to see a replay of it. So he had that McLaren up in front, and behind him was the other car. So this is the Nita Valets car by Christian Michel. He's going to move to the inside, but I think he just overcooked it into turn 1, because you can see he has a go, but it doesn't quite work out for him, and I think he tries to take the alternate route just to try and avoid getting a penalty.
Yeah, very good there actually to go around the Polestar. Always he's struggling here a little bit coming into this final sector as well. So Leon's obviously maybe got to a point on his tyres that he isn't very comfortable, or he's just got out of that concentration zone that one has to get themselves into when they're racing. He was having a few issues there. As we come back to the number 60 Nita Velux, and they're not having the best day so far. It was at least 3 penalties that we saw come up on the top left as well from last race, so not having the best race in Imola. which is obviously hurting themselves right now. Obviously being a lap down as well here now because of those drive-throughs, but they're starting to work their way back up and potentially here getting although I don't think that's actually a move for position. That is, actually no, it is, sorry, move for position on Provost into turn number 1. So they're getting past there, the number 45 Undercover Sim Racing. So that is 1 position down. And now he's got Mark Veit in front of him. So he is working his way back up slowly, but it's obviously not been the best start of the race. He always goes for a little bit of a slide there coming through turn 4, but he's is struggling a little bit. He just needs to pick these moves one off at a time slowly. Always Provost there goes spinning the wrong way, overcorrected a bit, and that is adding to the list of drivers who have gone for a spin so far.
Yeah, I think that Provost was beginning to sink down the order there, and now he's got the HM engineering car right behind him now with Delgado at the wheel. He was already sinking down the order. That last spin has cost him the position to the Flying Goat outfit in the sole Mercedes on track. But Patrick Delgado just 0.3 seconds behind. He's going to be looking to get this position. This could be quite an interesting battle. 2 very different looking cars. One very sleek and aggressive, one just big. But this is going to be a replay, all slow-mo as well. And you can see they were both struggling for traction through the sort of winding section, and it just got the better of Provost, and he couldn't quite catch it, especially with the slight dirty air coming off the car in front. And that's him going all the way around.
Yeah, I think the dirty air wasn't helping him there. Plus, obviously, the water on track. And towards that, Bentley does look pretty good, but it doesn't look too good when it's going the wrong way. So unfortunately, they dropped down a little bit. And I was just always got another car going for a spinner. That is the Drillers car of Antonovsky in 7th place. So one of the higher cars up the grid has gone for a spin. Can he get back out in front of Francesconi and co? Yes, he can, because they're about 5 seconds behind. So he's quite lucky there to not really lose a position. Always Blackbird's there going off the track. So a number of cars here really struggling to keep it on the track. But I believe that at least in the top part of the race, most of these guys are still out there on the dry compound tires. I do know in 12th place is Kuba Brzezinski. He has made a pit stop. He got up to about 7th place from his comeback, obviously spinning on turn 1, lap 1 incident, but he's now down in 12th place having made a pit stop. And here is going to be a replay of Antonovsky, who he's been quite aggressive all afternoon, to be honest. Gets past one of the HM engineering cars there, but he's going to just lose the rear here as we come through turn 4, and easily done, to be honest, especially if you go a tiny bit too wide onto a wetter part of the track. Yeah, gets on that curb, rear goes around, and at that point there's not much you can do.
Yeah, I think he had a slight touch of that McLaren actually on the exit of turn 3, between turns 2 and 3, just on the exit of the chicane. But now we've got Mark Slobodian. Behind him is Osasuyi Imunwen, who's doing quite a good drive right now for the Speedy Mike team in that Porsche, trying to get up to the Aston Martin. That gap now half a second. So he's doing a decent job, but I think Imunwen does have some good pace right now in the wet. As I say that, he goes onto the grass. So I think we're going to see quite an endurance battle in terms of just trying to get to the end. It's going to be a battle of attrition on this race, especially with these wet conditions. You can see right on the edge of grip is this Aston Martin.
Yeah, interestingly, it seems there's this little bit of a dry line forming right on the racing line. Now, that obviously helps when there's a number of cars still going, because as I was mentioning before, the intensity is obviously quite important, but the amount of cars that are driving out there obviously helps that quite a lot as well with how much the track is drying. And when there's 33 cars out on this track, they're obviously going to be drying it quite a lot. As we see Provost now down the inside into turn 4, and Delgado is probably going to think about following him through on this back marker as we come up to the midpoint of the track. I think this may be the pushrod car, which was involved in that set of collisions at the end of the first lap. Let's come up to the hairpin. He's going to think about it. I think Delgado is just going to have to sit behind for a couple more corners.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting race then, but we're back up to the race leader, now 13 seconds clear of P2. So Jelena Simicic absolutely flying today. He's got clear track ahead and behind him. Who doesn't, though, is Christian Michel, getting past there by the Speedy Mike car. Obviously, they're not racing each other. That's a laps car, but this is P2. You can see that gap to the lead at 13.8 seconds, which is quite the margin at this point in the race. We're not even an hour done yet.
Yeah, Yerne is the fastest man on the track, as you would expect with the gap that he's pulled himself. His last lap was a 13 flat, when a lot of people were doing sort of high 13s, even some 14s out there. So he is best part of a second a lap quicker than a lot of these drivers, or at least half a second from a couple of the guys behind him as well. So really stretching that gap for Burst Esport and doing such a good job as this car has done. And as I mentioned, they've actually had a different driver lineup for every single race so far, which just shows the broadness of their strength. And not many teams actually have that, where Burst really have 4 top quality drivers with Simoncic, Pedersen, Hoyer, and David Mocek as well.
Yeah, they have got a fantastic driver lineup, and it is really showing, as you've got Leon Bopp here, 1.5 seconds. So he did manage to get through the first chicane in that time, and he's going to be looking to catch up to the Nita Velez car with Christian Michel at the wheel. Yellow flags in sector 1. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of yellow flags through the course of this race, but this is Mark Veit passing a Nita Velez car. Don't think they're racing each other. No, that is P14, so he has just got past the Nita Velez McLaren there to hold on to P13. Joachim Stessner is at the wheel of that car, sticking very close behind though, so he's not giving that up at that position too easily.
Yeah, that's number 60 coming down on the number 7 quite heavily, having a nice little battle here. And this Scuderia Basilia car has been a bit of a dark horse almost in some of these races. They have been up even as high as, I believe, about 7th or 8th position in one of the races as well. So they definitely have a decent amount of speed, but this mid part of the pack in the GT3 Endurance series is so tight, and especially as points only go to 15th place, but obviously we've got way more cars than that. You really have to be on your game to be getting these points, and obviously if you have just a randomly good race or a couple of people who struggle about around you, that obviously affects the results quite a lot as well. So they've been doing pretty well, but it's so difficult. As you get Omicron once again getting lapped, we've seen quite a lot of them being lapped, unfortunately, in this race. They are struggling a little bit, but yes, Desmay is coming into turn number 1 and 2, not quite close enough for an overtake this time, but he's certainly working his way through the field a little bit if he can keep these overtakes coming.
What's interesting is that those two cars are in a championship battle. Now, this is Ollie McGowan, Speedy Mike racing against Radek Sieg. But yeah, the Scuderia Basilea and the Nita Velez car with Stesnes at the wheel, they're in a championship battle, just 1 point between them, with the Basilea outfit number 7 in P7 with 64 points, Nita Velez in 65 points. But this is the other Speedy Mike racing car, not doing quite as well as their teammate with Munwen at the wheel. However, they could be getting P21 as they go around the outside, which will become the inside line for the next turn, but they're going to have to back off there because it's quite a high-speed turn. It's not ideal to go side-by-side through here, though. Jonathan Provost, having lost the position to Jerome Priolo after his spin, has closed that gap up a little bit, and he'll be looking to retake P15.
And I'm sure Flying Goat really want to remain in this top 15, having been in a car this season that is not the nicest on the BOP per se. It's obviously competitive, but not easily able to get points. And Flying Goats so far are down there in 34th position in the championship, so they are struggling just a little bit. But obviously the car hasn't been helping them too much, so hopefully they can continue that to remain in that top 15.
Yeah, they're currently P33 in the championship. It's not been too good for them. As long as they stay consistent, they will be able to start making their way up the order, because we're not even halfway through the championship yet, as we do have Stesnes getting very close to the back of Mark Veit, and you can see up ahead that Corvette having a bit of a moment. This gap 0.3 of a second. We've still got the rain coming down, so it doesn't seem to be relenting anytime soon. But yeah, Stesnes not quite able to make his way through, but because these guys are separated by 1 point in the championship, It is going to be interesting to see how hard they battle that out. As I say that, Cessnays hits the curb. That's pulled him off the track, and that's going to cost him a car in front of him and a fair bit of time. So that is not what he wanted to happen there.
Yeah, certainly not. It's such a tight battle between these guys, and as you see, just the odd mistake here and there is really starting to affect them, as he's obviously been overtaken here by this Bentley of One Move, who are a lap down to them as well. So that's really not ideal for them. It's actually 2 laps down to them, so they're quite a way behind. We've got quite a big battle here actually for them coming here into turn 1 and 2. Quite a train of drivers.
Yeah, we've got Flying Goat at the front, followed by Undercover, and then Core Team. So 3 different cars, 1 unique car. The gaps between them are very low, and you can see Provost really putting the pressure on Priolo now. That Bentley really not shying away from a little bit of touching just the rear of that Mercedes, which does look quite nice. And he's going to have a look down the inside. Can he hold on to that position? Oh, he's got it very well there. Priolo now is in a sandwich. He's got Verschlüsel behind him for Core Team. So we have got another battle. Provost and Priolo really finding themselves in good places on the track to have these battles. And they're providing a fair amount of entertainment so far this evening. Despite being in 15th place, this is the battle for the points position, really, with 2 hours 15 minutes to go. And you can see, really, right on the edge of the track limits. You don't want to get off track, though, because they are going to accumulate quite quickly. And those drive-through penalties are going to have a really big effect on the outcome of the race. But Verschlüsel backing off from Priolo now. He has a sniff of the inside line. He's going to go for it into turn 1. Through the second part of the chicane, though, he's going to get a better exit if he can get the power down well enough. I think Priolo is going to defend for now, but it's not going to be clear how long he's going to hold on to that, as another sniff of the inside line goes the Core Team car. Just can't quite find the way through Team Goat. Team Goat having a little bit of a moment there. Priolo holding his own through the windy part of the track and just about holding on. Now we've got the Pinson Drillers car trying to navigate these guys as well. I think that's Antonovsky as well. He's going to have a look down the inside, try and get that position. That's going to separate these 2 cars now, because they have got that Corvette in between them. And that's going to separate the gaps, because it's going to be a lot easier for Priolo to let him through, because they are on the straight.
Yeah, it gets a little bit awkward when you're trying to have your own battle. Then you have some other cars trying to come through as well. Gets a little bit awkward, as we see here. Driller's trying to get past there, but Flying Go obviously doesn't want to lose too much time either. The Core is actually the ones who have gone off, and ProSimTech are going to go through, and Core there might end up in the barrier. If they're not too lucky, they might lose their rear wing, but fortunately, actually, Yuri there managed to save it. I don't think he actually made contact with the barrier. He did lose a few places, but at least he's still in the race, because that could have been a very nasty incident. But fortunately, there was just enough grass there that he was able to keep out of the barrier, but that's certainly not how you want to do that. But obviously, getting drillers or another car involved that isn't battling with you can always put you off a little bit.
Yeah, now we've got Michael Francesconi. He's made his way past Jerome Priolo, as that is quite a large group of cars all trying to get past at the same time. That gap now 1.2 seconds, and I think that the traffic just hasn't served the Flying Goat team any favours. Now we've got Christian Michel now into the pits. He was P3, he's going to be down to P4 now, so making a pit stop, perhaps going on to the wet tyres, seeing it fit, but it is 2 hours 30 minutes to go, not quite on the pit stop window.
Yeah, the fortunate thing with it being wet is that your stints will naturally be longer, as your fuel consumption will be less, so a fuel tank can therefore go further in terms of its lap count, and therefore time as well. So you will see stints well over an hour because of this rain, which could make the strategy quite interesting. So here we're going to see Verschlüsel come off, go all over the grass, and then he just can't turn, but he manages to just about stop it in time. Does he make contact with the barrier? No, he just stops it. Good control there, although obviously not on the first part of the chicane, but at least they're trying to save it, kept out of the barrier, which is exactly what you need to do to make sure you're keeping in the race.
But that is a good illustration of what happens as soon as your tyre goes beyond the curb, because it gets onto the grass and it just sucks you off the track. And we've seen that a couple of times now. The drivers are going to have to be very careful on the exit of that turn. And because it's followed by a very long straight, it is really not ideal to go off there. But this is on board with Georgie Dev, I believe. And you can see going relatively slowly, it looks like. I'm not quite sure.
And, yeah, not too sure either, but he was 6.5 seconds there behind Andonovski for 5th place. So there's obviously a couple of drivers, as you saw coming into the pit lane, that's sort of mixing up the order just a little bit, because these guys were a little bit further down. I think that is actually showing the wrong car, because that is the number 94 Core Team Racing. They're stuck behind that pushrod car, which I believe is not on the same lap as them in the background of this straight. Let's now see Andonovski up there into 5th place as well.
Yeah, so we're seeing the effects of the battle, and I think we've got Simon Marshall. We're riding on board with him, I believe, and that first chicane really closes up gaps because everyone's braking so hard, and when people go side by side through there, both cars lose a lot of time because there is only really one line through there. Otherwise, you're just going to lose buckets. But you can see the drivers all a bit of a moment for that BMW just ahead. But Yuri Verschlusel now, P17. It's ebbing and flowing a little bit between these two cars. But if Marshall can try and make up that time, as there's double contact, you can see the concertina effect there of one car being slowed down and being forced into the other. But we have got Jerome Priolo now with Yuri Verschlusel behind him. So we've got a three-way battle for P16 emerging. These flying goat car drivers really not shying away from the battles so far this race.
Yeah, certainly not trying to get involved there. Obviously, wants to be getting some decent points as well where possible. As obviously the championship, a lot of the drivers will be racing for fun, but the championship at the end of the day is what you want to do well in. You want to see your name as high as you can. As we said, that flying goat's not necessarily the highest in the championship, as he's gone wide a little bit there into turn 1, getting a bit of a different line, which is going to let Verschlusel get a better run now coming through turn 3. Though he's actually struggled a bit for traction, so that Mercedes has got off into the distance by almost half a second there just on the acceleration, which is quite interesting to see. And now he'll have to work his way through these really tricky corners in Sector 2, these long radius corners that you really lean on that outside tyre for so long. And even in these wet conditions, they could be quite tricky despite the lower speeds.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see there, I think Jerome Priolo ran slightly deep, but Verschlusel hit that inside curb, and that's cost him a little bit. And there goes number 91, I believe that's Mumwen, who's going to get between these drivers. But Yuri Verschlusel now ahead of Simon Marshall. So the Bentley driver still not able to retake that 17th position, but this is going to be an interesting battle emerging, because you can see the flying goat car not very far up the road from these guys. As off the track, maybe Verschlusel, no, just about catching that side, but it is going to cost him P16. Simon Marshall just about capitalising on the opportunity. In fact, he's not even going to be able to take it. He's not had a great exit as well. I think potentially down to him at trying to avoid the incident, and I'm not quite sure, but Core Team have got away with that one.
Yeah, he's gone wide a little bit in quite a few corners now, so needs to watch out for those rear tyres. As mentioned, the stints are definitely going to be longer, because you generally just still fill up to a full tank and go way longer as far as you can into a stint, and therefore you're going to be on those tyres for a lot longer. And if you start ruining them, then that's not going to be too good, especially the rear tyres. The rear tyres are very important in these cars in general, but also just on rFactor 2, where the rear can get a little bit slidey at points, so you do need to make sure you're keeping them in some good spirits. But someone who's doing a pretty good job so far is still Mark Veit, that we kept on board with quite a few times during the race so far in the first 50 odd minutes of the race, and he's now up into 11th place. Still got Stelzner behind him, so that position hasn't changed itself, but they've obviously done a decent strategy with when they've done pit stops or not, and are now up into some decent points paying positions ahead of some guys who are obviously doing some slightly different things, such as Pescara there down in 13th place. They were up in 4th, but obviously the race hasn't quite gone their way since then.
No, definitely not. And that is the battle for P6 in the championship overall. So they're going to be fighting tooth and nail. Of course, there's still a long way to go in the championship, but by the end of it, every point could make the difference. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. Of course, we have got that big gap up at the top, but in the midfield and towards the lower end of the championship, it is still really close between some of the drivers, as you can see between those two cars we've just seen battling. But this is Linus Lundfall now for the Seawolf Net Race car, trying to catch up to Daniel Silva in the Pro Simtech BMW. But yeah, you can see how Scuderia Basilea and Cetra's Nita Velux still battling. They're very evenly matched for pace. It's going to be down to one of them making a mistake that's going to be the only way this gap's going to start to extend, because Martin Vate's still getting a lot of pressure from that P12 McLaren, and the two different cars producing very interesting racing between the two of them.
Yeah, it's been a very good battle between these guys. They've been going at it for quite a while now, but it's not the easiest to overtake on this track as you've seen, but the rain is certainly making it easier, as it's a lot easier to make a mistake. But just battling itself, as long as the car ahead is doing the right thing, which, to be fair, Mark Vate has been doing all race so far, it is a little bit tricky, but certainly possible, as we've seen a number of drivers overtake, especially in places such as turn 1. And if Joachim can get a nice exit, he might be able to do something. But it's one of those situations where you really have to line a driver up for a number of corners or maybe a number of laps and get into a position of having some positive momentum, or maybe even some mind gains. As you see here, Mark Vate's got a little bit wide, so this could be an opportunity for Stensis as we come towards the end of Sector 1 into Sector 2. Just getting that driver ahead of you a little bit offline.
Yeah, and with that exit from turn 1 through to 3, if you can get the power down earlier there, as we've seen the opportunity for drivers to do, turn 4 leads into what is listed as 4A on the track map. However, under braking, there could just be the opportunity to send up the inside. The only problem is it's so much narrower on the exit of that turn than on the entry, because for some reason it goes from the main straight to about half its width almost through to the rest of the track, and we're already heading towards the end of the lap, which just goes to show how short the lap is round here. But we're going to see how important the exit of these last couple of turns are, and you can see a bit of a side there from Stesnes. He's held on to it though, and it's all going to be about the exit along here. It looks like Vate just about getting the power down that fraction earlier, giving him that extra gap that he needs to just keep holding on to the position, because it's not the longest straight in the world, and there's difficulty in overtaking into turn 1 because it is a chicane. But it could be that Martin Vate really parking on the apex, but can Stesnes get it down on the exit? They're still incredibly close. The gap slightly shortening, but it's just not quite enough for that Nita Velux car to get past the Scuderia Basilea.
Yeah, Mark's doing a pretty decent job, though. He is making a couple of sort of micro mistakes here and there, and eventually one of these is going to crack, and eventually Joachim will have a bit of an opportunity, as we see here, all over the back of him, almost touching him, coming through the hairpin onto what is effectively the back straight. Although that kick there is 8, and then this long right-hander that we call the back straight is turn 9. But he's not quite close enough this time either. But he's certainly there putting pressure, and I think he's going to be ruining a couple of those mistakes he made earlier. Obviously, the penalties he had from last race were, potentially not his fault. I didn't see if he was the one who earned them last race, but I can't do much about them. But he obviously then had that spin and that sort of stuff, which puts you out of position elsewhere as well.
Look how close this is between Provost and Russo. Very close through there. Jonathan Provost really sliding his Bentley through the last couple of turns and just about holding on to P14. I'm not quite sure what happened on the entry there, but they were very side by side through turn 9 and onto the straight. Can Luigi Russo get that position? He is going to be ahead. He's got the speed on the exit, and we've got a BMW behind as well, who's going to send it up the inside of Provost into turn 1. Just not going to try and reclaim that position if he's trying to lap these cars. But look at this, Luigi Russo getting P14 back from the undercover car, in some very, very close but tidy racing.
So Go Team Racing have made a driver swap already, because Nedev started that car. So I did miss that in one of their pit stops, but they must have changed drivers already, which is quite an interesting one to change so early. But maybe Russo was feeling a bit more comfortable in the wet conditions, because I'm sure they would have seen the forecast and tried to do some practice here and there in the wet conditions. We're going to get a replay here, looking back at that battle coming down the back straight. Oh, a bit of contact there between Prevost and I think it's Simon Marshall that we're on board with. And yeah, a bit of contact, not what you want to see, but fortunately that wasn't too bad.
No, definitely not, although they did come together twice and Russo hit the barrier. But it has been quite an interesting battle. You can see there a big slide for that Bentley, which is what gave the opportunity. But I think the BMW might be slightly slower in a straight line. But this is Jerome Priolo with the Flying Goat car. He's got Yuri Verschluzel right behind him. So these guys still battling for P17. That Mercedes, it's done okay. It's slightly dropped down the order as it's gone through battles. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen ahead in the next 2 hours? Because we are only 1/3 of the way through the race. We've only had an hour. We've still got 2 hours to go. Will they go up the order? Will they continue to go down? I'm not sure, but they have been putting on some excellent shows, and you've got to give it to them. Good racing. They've been very clean as well. They haven't collided with anyone yet, which is more than can be said for some of the other cars, but he's gone very wide, and curse of the commentator all the way around. That is not what you want to see for the battle for P17. That's
that
was for the Flying Goat team and for Yuri Verschluzel. They both lost a lot of time there, but a lot more for that Mercedes car.
Yeah, that was just some fairly bad judgment. Unfortunately, it was sort of caused as well by the Flying Goat going a little bit wide, but then Core Team just sent it down the inside there, far too aggressive for the situation, especially in the wet conditions. As soon as you get a little bit of a tap, as we go to 2 hours to go, and there's a car off in the background there, I believe that could be one of the Netrex cars that went off. But yeah, as soon as you get a little bit of a tap, you're just going around. You've got way less grip, and that was Stenslis going off there in turn 4. As we see, Nico Barkley is in the pit lane, getting I would assume, a fresh set of tyres with the amount of time that's been sat there.
Yeah, so we've had 1 hour gone. We've still got 2 hours to go. And these two Nita Velix cars finding themselves in battles. Yeah, I think it's Stesnes that went off just a moment ago. It says he's a second behind Slobosian, but that gap, yeah, rapidly increasing now. So number 60 still trying to battle that Volante Racing Aston Martin. But they've got a bit of a job now. So this is Osasui and Munwen, P5, doing an excellent job. Christian Michel, which is the other Nita Velix car that we've been watching, has actually got ahead of the Speedy Mike car. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with these times in the bottom of our screen, but you can see that Bentley again still getting that slide on through the final turn. He's a lap ahead at least, so he's going to be able to sail past now. Well, I say sail past, it looks like he's not going to make it too easy, as Provost does give way, and we've got the Seawolf Net Race car behind as well.
Yeah, that gap seems to be the wrong way around, doesn't it? On the graphic, which is quite interesting, but it definitely seems, at least on his car, it looks like he's looking about 6th place on the LCD there, on the top left-hand corner as we see it on the windscreen. But yeah, either way, this nice Velix car's been doing all right there, number 30. As we jump back to Nico Barkley, come out of the pit lane and is now battling with fellow BMW of Michael Francesconi. As they come round the final corner, they are behind the Drillers car, although Drillers are now up into 4th place and are therefore a lap ahead of these drivers.
Yeah, and I think Francesconi doing quite a good job. He's been slowly but surely making his way back up the order, because it obviously wasn't a brilliant start for the Pescara ATP Alto Tyler car. Nico Barkley, though, he's a very quick driver. At the Nürburgring, they were doing fantastically until they had a crash, I think, towards the end of the race, maybe on the last or second last lap. But they're in P12 now, so they're obviously not in an awful position for Monaco, and they're going to be battling. These two cars, their positions aren't representative of their pace at the moment. They're in the same car on track, the BMW. Of course, they'll be running slightly different setups, and they're going to be trying to get past this Pinson car, although I believe that car is a lap ahead, as you said. So, yeah, that's P4 there. And they're going to be battling, but they've got to be careful because you don't want to take out a car, especially one that's not even on the same lap as you.
Yeah, this is where it gets a little bit awkward because Francesconi, well, has been for the whole lap that we've been following him, is all over the back of Timo, but just can't quite get past, which will be a little bit frustrating because he's probably feeling that he's got the speed. In fact, Timo is actually having to defend coming down the start-finish line. But he's going to be able to not really be under too much threat coming into turn number 1 and 2. And this will be annoying Timo a little bit because, he's in his own battle. Yeah, he's got, 20 seconds up the road and 12 behind him, but he doesn't want to lose time any more than he needs to in his Callaway Corvette because he doesn't want to lose his lead lap either, as the car behind him in 5th place, which I believe is the Knight of Alex car, he will be... Christian Michel, that is, he will be wanting to stay on the lead lap as well. And before you know it, Yanni Simicic will probably be coming round because Yanni Simicic has already lapped up to 6th place already, only in the first hour of this race. So this is quite a devastating performance from Burst Esport.
Yeah, definitely. Now, if I was Andonovski right now, I'd be slightly concerned because it's always worrying when you've got a back marker sticking right behind you. And it's even more worrying when you've got two back markers battling, which are right in your rearview mirrors. And it doesn't look like that's been the greatest last couple of turns for the Pinson outfit. And Francesconi, he could try and unlap himself. Now, he is allowed to do so as long as he pulls away afterwards. But the problem is he won't be able to pull away because these guys seem to be pretty much equivalent pace. And you can see that's P20 or 30 just pulling off to the inside, letting these guys through. Yeah, that was P30. Just giving way along the straight, which is good to see, and staying out of the battle, which is really what you want, especially when these guys are very quick and very evenly matched. And we saw there a little bit of a slide for Andonovski, so he's not quicker than these drivers, and that's what I was saying a minute ago with these cars' positions not representative of their pace. But as you can see, Francesconi and Nico Barkley really sticking to the back of that Corvette as through the last turn before the straight. Here we go through turn 8 into turn 9, turn 8 being that left-hand kink. But yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see what happens between these three drivers.
And I believe, obviously we just saw Nico Barkley did, but I also believe that Francesconi has made a pit stop early in the race, but I don't believe that Timo did. So I believe he's still out on that first set of tyres as well, and they are not going to be nice as we're going obviously well into the second hour now. As mentioned, obviously the fuel tank therefore can go a bit longer due to the reduced speed and reduced amount of time on the throttle in the wet conditions. So that's going to put him at a fair pace disadvantage, to be honest, which is why he's struggling a little bit. And going to see on the last lap, he did get 14.4. That is still 1 second slower than Yanni Simicic, the race leader. So he is struggling a little bit himself. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be coming into the pit lane at some point soon. Just depends, obviously, how far we're going to see these guys go on a fuel tank. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be getting towards maybe even an hour and 20 minutes or so. So he could be out for another maybe even 15 minutes from where we are now.
Yeah, the stint times, given the wet conditions, are going to have an impact, especially on the end of the race, because it's going to mean that final stint is going to be that much shorter, meaning drivers will have to run less fuel. We've had a couple of yellow flags, but Nico Barkley and Michael Francesconi inseparable on track right now. That gap still 0.3 of a second, with Andonovski P4 ahead of them, not able to get away either. So I don't think we're going to see much change in the order between these guys for a few laps yet. Of course, when Andonovski, he might be trying to just extend to that pit stop, and then he'll be able to get on some wet tyres and just keep going if he feels like wets are necessary, which, looking at the track, they probably are. However, yeah, Francisconi is going to be up his chuff until that point comes, unless a mistake comes, which is very possible considering what we've seen so far this race. And I don't want to jinx anything like I did earlier, but you can see Nico Barkley really probing for the gap that isn't really existent. But you can see every time through turn 7, he is really just trying to find that route he can pick through to get a better exit along this back straight and take that position.
These guys are starting to bunch up a little bit now, and this is where I guess even harder to make an overtake, because you often hear these more professional drivers as well say it. When you get behind someone, it's a lot easier to make an overtake straight away, but if you sort of sit there for quite a while, the people ahead start getting a bit more comfortable with the situation. They start getting a bit more confidence that they can keep you behind, and also they just sort of learn what parts of the track you're a bit faster on and that sort of stuff. So when you get into this position, it is a little bit harder to make something work. But that's, as I mentioned earlier, you need to work it up, work the situation into your hands, try and get a bit of momentum. And certainly Nico Barkley is starting to do that, because he's getting right on the back of Francisconi as we come through this sector 2, and he's trying to line him up in some way to get a run down this back straight.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, Francisconi seems to be dropping a little bit behind Andonovski. You can see that gap on the track really beginning to extend, so maybe he's caving into the pressure which is being put on quite heavily by Nico Barkley behind. But yet you can see, I think that Barkley is going to try and take that position. Now, Ferris Stanley P2 right now, and Leon Bock P3, both in the pit, so potential driver swap and fuel and tyres will be likely going on, because those guys have been on the slick tyres up until this point.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if we see some driver swaps, that's for sure. Although it is going to be a bit difficult sort of jumping into this situation for a brand new driver. Obviously the people who started the race, they're going to be used to these conditions, they're going to be understanding how the car's feeling right now. For you to just jump straight in, bear in mind, you could do some practice laps on single player or on your own private server or something like that, but you can't do the exact conditions that there are on this track at this moment, with the exact percentages that there are on the racing line, on the offline, and you can't then also simulate how many cars there are out on track and this sort of thing. It's not the same, so it's really difficult to just jump in and try and get on pace. But then that is where you see the better drivers, as you see them come in, because as I mentioned before, they do have to do a driver swap at some point. You just got to do it at the right moment and when the driver's feeling it.
Yeah, especially when I think Jordan in the Evolution car, they've jumped Ferris Stanley in the pit, so Stanley's kept at the wheel for the HM Engineering outfit, but he has dropped behind. Now we've got Ollie McGowan behind Mark Vate trying to get that position. Some car went off, I think, on the exit, probably avoided the barrier, but this is now... Ooh, that is not what you want to see from Nico Barkley. He's straddled across the pit lane entrance now. That is very interesting. Could be a possible code 80 if he can't get that car moved.
That's an awkward one. I wonder if he has hit the pit wall and killed his engine, because it's a bit interesting that he stood there for 5 or 10 seconds and didn't move at all. That is a bit of a weird one, so I do wonder if maybe he's blown his engine with the impact. We'll have to see if he gets moving again, but that's not going to be good. Oh no, they've actually DNF'd. But this season has gone from bad to worse for this Wanako team. They've had such good pace and such good performance in a number of the races, but they are lacking a bit down there in 11th place in the championship. They were doing so good in Silverstone in the first race of the season, but then they had the disconnection, and then I believe they also had another disconnection in the Nordschleife as well. So some really difficult races they've had in the beginning half of this GT3 Endurance series, but I'm sure they'll be back for the next 4 races to finish out the season. But yeah, that's going to be a little bit demotivating for them. But I want to see what actually happened there, because it's a bit awkward to work out from the angle that we saw. It was a bit of a weird place to be stopped.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the Nordschleife it might have been pedal issues which caused them to have a big crash. It might have been a disconnection, but either way, they have been incredibly unlucky. But the thing is, they've had a lot of pace, so it must be doubly frustrating for them to have not being able to finish when it's through no fault of their own, such as a disconnection, but B, as it looks here, to be a driver error, and it looks like quite a simple one as well, because it's quite hard to get it on the exit into that pit lane. It's a bit of an awkward entry as you've got Ferris Stanley getting really close behind Dennis Jordan through the first chicane. But that, yeah, as you said, it must be incredibly demotivating for the Monaco team, because they just have had absolutely horrid luck, and it just isn't representative of what they're capable of at all.
Yeah, they're definitely capable of getting at least top fives, if not some podiums here and there over the course of the season. But as you say, they've just not had the luck on their sides. Fortunately, I will correct what I said earlier. Points actually go down to 30th place, not 15th. So that is what has led them to get a couple of points in the. I say a couple. They've done fairly decently on a couple of those recovery drives, and for other teams as well. So if you do have a bit of a bad race, you can get back and get some points. But it just means that you end up losing so many points, with there being 50 points for a win. They're going to be losing another 50 points here today to the winner. And obviously, Burster looking fairly good at the moment. Or maybe even someone like Evolution, they're in a good position as well. So some of those teams are going to lose 50 points to. And in a championship, there's only 8 races long. You can't really afford to have too many races like that. And they've already had at least 3 of those so far in 4 races.
Yeah, and yeah, with the point about it being a short championship, the races are long, but only 8 rounds, which means each points finish is much more valuable than in other championships. For example, in F1, you've got 20. This season, you were supposed to have 23 opportunities to get points. Here it's only 8. That's almost a third. And the impact of not being able to finish a race can destroy the championship, because if you've got another car, maybe not finishing quite as high, but extremely consistent, they can take the championship from you. But this traffic ahead of Dennis Jordan now is really giving Ferris Stanley the opportunity he needs to try and get past, because you can see that gap now under 0.2 of a second. Could we see 3 wide? Not quite, but he is going to send it down the inside. That McLaren doing well to get out of the way. The Evolution Motorsports car, though, still got a bit of traffic to navigate ahead of him. This is going to be really interesting as we head through the next lap or two, because very similar pace, and it's hard to navigate traffic as it is. And we can see just how beneficial it is for the car behind, as that gap closed down rapidly just a few moments ago.
And obviously some cars ahead of them still need to make pit stops as well and things like that, so it's going to get very close. And specifically the car right ahead of them is the Scuderia Mascala car, which I believe still needs to make a pit stop, or in some ways out of sequence with pit stops either way. So obviously they're on a completely different part of their race, to be honest, so they're going to be getting involved in losing time here, although it looks like Dennis Jordan has actually managed to get past them in turn 4, 5, 6 complex, so he's done pretty well there, because that's going to give him a little bit of breathing space from Ferris Stanley as well, who obviously lost out in that traffic, and that is why the traffic is so important. Now Dennis Jordan has seemingly about 30 seconds to the next car, but we do believe that's Williams Esports, and they are a little bit off kilter with strategy, so eventually they'll drop behind at some point.
Now, I'm getting word that Nico Barkley was pushed, so it would be really interesting to see a replay of what happened to them. But you can see now, yeah, Ferris Stanley, he's now got Andre Mascala, who's ended up between these 2 cars, involved in the battle now for P5. I didn't realise that he was involved in this battle that originally I thought was just between 2 cars, but no, Ferris Stanley, he's going to be trying to get past and catch up to Jordan in that BMW. And this is going to play for the advantage of the car in P5, because it looks like Stanley is quicker than Mascala, and the Scuderia Mascala team doing pretty well so far today. And you can see there, though, that it does look like Stanley has the pace over them, and Jordan is going to start pulling away, but down the inside, has he held on to that? Yes, he has. Mascala getting out of the way. I think he knows that he wasn't battling too much for position there and just gave way.
Yeah, I've just had a I've just seen a replay of Nico Barkley. He's posted a video of basically how he crashed, and he got hit by, I think it may have been the Volante car trying to get into the pit lane. He wasn't trying to, but the Volante car was coming across. It's a bit of an awkward situation, and yeah, he did basically hit the pit wall, which seemingly, I believe, killed his engine, which is not nice at all, not what you want to happen. So very, very unfortunate. If you end up seeing the video yourself, you'll understand the situation. It's a little bit awkward there, but we'll change our focus back to this battle, which is now for the podium position. So I do believe, as I said, these guys are going to need to drop behind with the way the strategy is going to work out. But Brzezinski, after that spin in turn 1, has got himself back up into 4th position, following the number 91 Speedy Mike Racing with Amemwen in the car at the moment. And this is a good opportunity for Speedy Mike to show what they can do, because they have struggled a little bit so far this season, but also for Brzezinski, this will be a little bit of redemption getting back onto this podium.
Yeah, I think that Speedy Mike have been doing a really good job so far, but the comeback for the Williams Esports Chill Blast car as well is really good to see, because they had that spin at turn 1, and I've just seen the video as well of the Monaco car, so once again it's not really their own fault that they ended up out of the race, which is unfortunate for them. But now we've got the Flying Goat car. He's going to just try and let these guys through. You can see having to do a slight correction because he's off the racing line. But yeah, Amemwen, he's going to be defending at this 3rd position, because all of the pit stops are really out of sync at the moment. Everything is going to be really, really interesting to see where everyone ends out, and I don't think we're going to see the final order till roughly 20 minutes to go. And of course, we're not even halfway through the race yet. A lot of stuff can happen, but Jacob Brzezinski doing a really good job there, catching up to what is currently P3, although everything will be changing as the race progresses.
Once again, unfortunately, we're seeing a video of Omicron getting lapped. This Aston Martin has been in the shop quite a bit during the course of the opening 1 hour and 20 minutes of this race. Unfortunately, a lot of it has been with being lapped, and once again we're getting another situation of that here with Brzezinski. They're getting past as well. And just mentioning that we are 1 hour and 20 minutes into the race just shows how crazy it is when the rain starts coming down, as the leader Yeni Simčić still out there, still hasn't pit, and we're now over 1 hour and 20 minutes into this race, which just shows you how much reduced the fuel consumption is when you get into these sorts of conditions.
I've just had news that Scuderia Basilea are out of the race as well, because Mark Veit has had a game crash. So this is where we start to see things go wrong. We've had Monaco out of the race, and that is really unfortunate. I know David Yun is devastated by the news that he's not going to be able to drive. And they were doing really well as well. They were battling for the championship, and for their race to end through something of no fault of their own at all is just incredibly frustrating for them. So that's unfortunate for them, but the race is going to move on, and we've got Timotej Andonovski now. He's got Michael Francesconi behind him. Is he going to be able to pull away? Because we saw earlier when they were on different laps, I believe, they were roughly of equal pace, but now they're on the same lap, and we're going to have an actual battle between them, which might have been why Andonovski was quite keen on keeping them behind. But he's also got Joachim Stesnes ahead of him in that Cetres Nita Velux, who is in P7 now, 2 seconds up the road. It's going to be interesting to see whether he begins to close up or not, but also what happens behind as well. So lots of battles beginning to emerge once again, and we've still only got the top 6 on the lead lap.
Yeah, top 6 on the lead lap is quite incredible, and especially as you see their 5th and 6th. They were over a minute behind as well, so they're very close to getting lapped, although, as we said, Yeni Simčić does owe a pit stop to us. But yeah, quite an interesting one. And also, I've just had a thought that doing a double stint So the drivers starting, obviously, they're going so far into this. If they do another stint, then they will obviously get basically to the end of the race, and then they will therefore fall foul of the driver time rules. So I would assume that the teams who have stayed out this long, such as Burst and a couple of others that are still out there, I think they're going to have to do their driver swap on this pit stop, and potentially only do one pit stop in this race, as we are already getting towards that halfway barrier. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Burst are trying to do, and do this on only one pit stop within 3 hours, which is quite incredible, as we now see Alice Plever coming down the inside of Oliver Newman. So Newman has got into that Joy Racing car. Obviously, Simon Marshall was in that earlier. Now he's defending really well there from Alice Plever, who couldn't quite get past into turn 1. Really good there from Oliver, round the outside of turn 1, on the inside of turn 2, and has kept that for 16th position.
Now the Scuderia Basilea car are going to try and rejoin and get back in the race, but what's interesting to me is it looks like the rain is relenting, because the windscreen wipers aren't going anymore, and we might see another salvo of pit stops soon if the rain doesn't come back, because these wet tyres are going to become very hard to drive on if the track becomes dry. And that's also going to throw it's going to change the strategies once more again, because if we go back to dry conditions, that Burst car won't be able to get away with one stop. They'll have to do 2. So this is going to be very interesting, because yeah, the drivers have stopped and there doesn't seem to be much spray coming off the cars. And you see Oliver Newman now struggling for grip through that final turn. Alice Plever managing to drive it quite well. On the exit, he's going to move to the inside. Newman squeezing him as much as possible, moving back round, but he's going to have the position before the braking zone, and he's going to hold on to it as well. You can see the Speed Mike Porsche coming out, and the one mover Bentley behind the Joy Racing car. So yeah, with the rain stop, oh no, the windscreen wipers are going again, so maybe that was just a brief pause, but I'm pretty sure the windscreen wipers did stop for a moment there.
Yeah, certainly did, and I believe they are actually automatic. When it starts raining, they do automatically turn on. So looks like for a number of these drivers that it has come back on, so it must be drizzling just a little bit. And it did look like for a moment that the sky got a little bit brighter as well. So I do think it stops racing for a little bit. But that's quite interesting. It was Matthew de Krop there, goes for a spin in the final chicane sequence of the lap. And another driver to go for a little bit of a spin. But to be fair, it is quite a difficult track, but also the conditions aren't helping it either. But that strategy is going to be very crucial actually with how the rain goes on, because if it completely dries up, they will obviously have to then make another pit stop. But if it stays wet, I do think that Burst are going to be able to complete that and do a one-stop race, considering we only have 4 minutes left. And I'm sure if it was fully wet especially, they would be able to save that fairly comfortably, as that is only 3 or 4 laps around this short track.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because if the rain stops once during the race, is it going to come back and stay back, or is it beginning to wane now? Is the rain going to relent and once more change things? Because yeah, that was a brief pause. It looks like the rain's picked up again, but is it going to stay around? I think it's the question the drivers will be asking. But this is Christian Michel now in P2 quite comfortably as well. He's got 11 seconds behind him, 30 seconds in front of that Burst car, which just has ridiculous pace today, and most of the championship really. But yeah, they've been doing a silent but excellent drive so far in that Nita Velix McLaren, and the outcome of this race is going to be very dependent. Can these guys also stretch it to that halfway mark before they do their pit stop? It's going to be interesting what happens in this latter half of the race, especially with the weather.
Yeah, it seems that there's obviously been a bit of a lull, but as you say, will it come back, and will it come back heavy as well? There is still 30 cars out there on the track, so that's going to be drying out the track quite a lot. So it is going to need a decent amount of rain intensity for them to be able to basically have the track getting more and more wet rather than drying up. And as we see here, two Pro Sim Tech cars battling each other coming around turn 9 with the Muscala car now behind them, as well as the Blackbirds car. Obviously, Muscala now made their pit stop. They did that fairly recently, down into 10th place, but that is still a very good result considering on strategy they are up into the top 10. This is probably the most positive race that we've seen so far from that entry.
Yeah, I think they've been doing a really good job so far. I was quite surprised to see them so far up the order just a moment ago, but that car, oh, look at that BMW quite close. That's not going to be what Baumgarten wants to see on the exit. Is getting very close. You can see him flashing in anger. It's definitely darker again on the screen as up ahead that Scuderia Muscala car running slightly wide. However, that P2 car, number 30, is in P8 in the championship, I believe, or P9 potentially. But in their current form, yeah, they're P8 on 62 points. So in their current position, they're going to go past that Scuderia Basilea car, which is currently not racing at all, and potentially ascend past the teammate Nita Velic's car, the number 60, and potentially past Pinson Drillers, although in their current place, the number 78 is doing very well, and it's unlikely that the points will be enough to take that position in the championship.
We see a car off there in the background. Is that Andonovsky? I believe he's still in that car, and that Pinson Drillers car in 6th place. He was going off there into that final sequence of corners. Another driver to get a bit caught out there. It is a very, very difficult part of the track because the chicane is... It may not look it so much on the camera, but it is a very fast chicane. You're really pushing the limits of the car, and especially on in these conditions, it is going to be a little bit more tricky. So I'm not surprised at all that a couple of those drivers have been struggling a little bit with that one. But that's not what you want to be doing, especially when you're up in a decent position in 6th place. And he does have a Pescara not too far, only 10 seconds behind him as well, so he can't be making too many mistakes as we see another yellow in Sector 3 pop up. But that adds to the list. As we see, 3rd place, Williams Esports are in the pit lane. And this is already their 2nd pit stop. And I do wonder if maybe they're going to be swapping drivers and then trying to go to the end, or at least getting as far towards the end as possible, trying to reduce the amount of pit stops, because Burst Esports haven't made a pit stop at all, and Williams already making their 2nd.
Yeah, these pit stops are going to be... They're going to have a huge effect on the outcome of the race. And the fact that Williams is pitting again, maybe they're confident that the 2nd driver will be able to go right up to the checkered flag now, with the halfway point just about passed. But these top guys, when they pit, which they have yet to do, even though we're past halfway, as Andre Arujo, is he going to have contact? Yes, he is. He's going to hit Baumgarten. That could have been a lot worse, although there might be some slight damage. They're fortunate, I think, not to have had a spin for either of them, but that is frustrating for both of them, and it's going to cost him the position.
Yeah, that's such an unfortunate situation. Arujo just needed that extra few meters of track, but unfortunately, Baumgarten was in the way there. There's certainly going to be some damage from that. Not the nicest pieces of contact that you'd want to see. Just a bit of wrong place, wrong time sort of situation. But I would say there's definitely going to be a bit of damage there, potentially for both cars, which is not what you want when there's still half of the race to go. Or as we see another car off one of the Nita Velic's.
Yeah. I'm not sure which Nita Velic's that is, but considering both of them are very competitive, I don't think that's the P2 Nita Velic's. Oh, and as well, that's the undercover SimRacing car, I think, as well, off in the background. So people struggling for grip. I think the rain might have picked up a little bit again. The track's become a little bit more greasy, and it's catching a few of the drivers out.
Yeah, it definitely is. That dry racing line seems to have dissipated a slight bit, and we're getting a lot more spray on the racing line as well. So I think you're right. I think the rain is coming down a little bit more. We've got the yellow in Sector 1 as well, and we're now lapped up to 3rd position. That is quite incredible from Yannis Simic. Obviously, he does need to make a pit stop, but he's now gone over 1 hour and 30 minutes. This is quite unbelievable, actually. I was expecting, as Antonovsky's gone round again, so it definitely is starting to get really, really wet indeed. But yeah, Yannis Simic has gone over an hour and a half. I did expect maybe an hour and 20, hour and 25, but to go over an hour and a half is some really good fuel saving. And just to put that into perspective, a normal stint is around 55 to 1 hour. And these guys are going half of that again. So much fuel saving is being had. So here's Nico Barkley coming behind the Pescara car. Oh, this is how he DNF'd, I think, because this is going to be a little bit awkward. Then I think this is a Volante car coming across into the pit lane and just pushes Nico into the wall.
That is really, really unfortunate. I think Volante may have been slightly risky in that. So this is, I think, the first pit stop for Andonovski and the Pinson car, but with Nico Barkley there, it's really unfortunate. I'm not sure if the Volante car had taken the right line on the exit out of that final turn, because it didn't end up well. But this is P14 and P15, now both taken up by Speedy Mike cars. The third Speedy Mike car currently in P5 with an absolutely fantastic drive so far from Osasui and Mumwen. But it'll be interesting to see how much these two cars battle, because of course they are teammates, and I'm not sure it'll go down too well within the team if they collide in a battle, or if they slow each other down too much, which is another result of battling. You can see the sky is back to its full darkness, as it was lighter a little bit earlier. It looks like the rain's picking up again, because you can see from the onboard the spray is getting quite strong once more.
Well, yeah, that spray was really big in turn one. Could actually see the sister teammate there with Nick De Silva in the number 93, with Matthew Fennell in the number 92 as well behind him. Very difficult to see out there in the spray, and I'm sure the drivers will be struggling with that just a little bit, which could actually be part of the reason that some of these drivers are going for some spins here and there, as drillers are back out on track in 10th place, so haven't really lost too much from that. But that is really due to the gaps, the tower at the moment on the intervals, so that is the gap per driver. And you can see we're seeing gaps of 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. And to be honest, that pit stop hasn't made much difference, because unfortunately Antonovsky is going for a spin again. And interesting, he stayed in the car actually, because once again they'll need to be making a driver swap at some point. So that's going to be a little bit awkward with that, because he probably has enough fuel to get towards the end of the race now anyway.
Yeah, I'd have thought so, especially considering what we've seen so far. But I know that Volante Racing, Donat Prodam, he has been really apologetic about what happened with the Monaco car. And I just think that was a matter of wrong place, wrong time for all of the drivers involved. And definitely put it down to a racing incident, or quite possibly. It'll be interesting to see what the stewards come out with. But it is just really unfortunate, that whole event. Now, I'm not sure if Scuderia Bassilet are back in, but this is going to be a replay of Andonovsky on the pit exit. So he's still in the car, and he'll be accelerating in towards the first turn. You can see him turn right. And could this be a matter of cold tyres on the exit in these wet conditions? It's not too obvious, because he's heading through turn 4 now. And he has a clear track in front of him, and yeah, he just understeers off the track and is taking the rallycross line there, I think, because he did manage to apex it. It's just the apex was a wall that was not on the track at all. And then he had a Bentley around his outside, and he understeered straight off the track once again. And he's going to take out the triangular board and return to the track. And I do think a Bentley went off track trying to get past him as well. So it's falling apart a little bit for Pinsendras. Maybe he just fell out of concentration for a moment and should hopefully just be able to get himself back into the right state of mind, because it's always when you're in the zone and then you have an incident like that, it really takes you out of the frame of mind that you want to be in, and it can be quite difficult to return to that position you were in beforehand, where you're just doing those constant laps. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can just get back into the zone, because that's going to upset his flow quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising, really, to see that Driller's car struggling. And in the first race of the season in Silverstone, they actually had a 1 and 3 with the 2 Drillers cars. I think it was Antonovsky on pole on that day, and then the Henry Sinek car, the sister car, in 3rd place. And unfortunately, they just haven't really got their season going from then. They've obviously got some good pace, but are struggling just a little bit. The number 78, which I believe is Timo's car, they are 5th in the championship, to be fair, but they are not. I mean, they should be even higher than that, to be honest, considering where they are in certain races. But this race, they're just struggling. So maybe once they do a drive swap, that will change for them a little bit. But yeah, they haven't really had the race that they would have wanted, and even 10th place is a bit disappointing, considering obviously their laps. They're 20. They got 23 to the car ahead, and then another 30 seconds to the car ahead of that. So really not what they would have wanted.
No, it hasn't been playing out in their favour at all. But what's interesting here is that the Silver and Fennel, both teammates, both flashing simultaneously as they head along the straight. Still, there's quite a bit of a gap to that BMW in front. But they aren't battling hard, which is probably what the team boss wants to see. Doesn't want them crashing into each other, doesn't want them battling too hard, despite being in the same car. Very similar pace at the moment. They're playing it well, because they're going to be able to help each other if they avoid battling and just try and stay in line and keep consistent with one another as well, because they've got a bit of a gap ahead. It's 3.6 seconds.
Oh, I've just seen on my screen, Antonovsky has gone off massively in the final sector. I only just saw the very last pass out of the corner of my eye, but yeah, that Driller's car's had a huge off in that final sector, and they have DNF'd. And with all due respect, that's probably for the better with how their race was going. That was going to be a struggle in the last hour and 20. So Timo here coming through the final chicane and turning into the final corner, just loses the rear end. Doesn't look like intentional or anything. Just looks like he lost the rear end there. Going in a little bit too hot, pushing a little bit too much. As we have another car off there, I believe it was a BMW, maybe a Seawolf car off there in the background. Yeah, I think it's Seawolf there, down in 27th place. Just saw them drop down. So another car really struggling in that final sector.
Yeah, and I think Timo just lost his frame of mind. And it is unfortunate to see, but that their race was descending into chaos. And whilst it's unfortunate to see them finish, I was also interested as to why he was still in the car, although they had made that was their second pit stop that they had just done not too long ago. And another thing is that the Burst Esports car, that has lost 10 seconds to the car behind. I'm not quite sure why that is. I'm not sure if they've made their first pit stop yet. I don't think they have, but we've got Lucas Stramek here, or rather Thomas Jacobs and Pedro Pimenta, the Pro Simtech BMW, ahead of the HM Engineering McLaren. That gap, 9/10 of a second. But this is going to be a replay of Rob Moore in the Seawolf car. So you got it correct, but he just carried too much speed, couldn't get it turned in, and went onto the grass, which it's very hard to, once you touch it, to stay off it, because it just pulls you off the track because of its lack of traction.
Yes, it's a very, very difficult part of the track. It's a very difficult sequence of corners. You really want to try your best to keep it on, the grey stuff, but you're really trying to push as well. Especially there's a little bit of tarmac just on the exit after the second apex. You can go out wide, which opens up the final corner as well. So yeah, a number of drivers have been caught out by that, but that's just what you get when you're pushing. And Rob Moore again when a final corner has now gone off in turn 4 as well. So struggling a little bit out there, but you can see that racing line has completely gone now from the site. So it is definitely wet out there. And I've just been able to look actually through the lap times, and I actually believe that SimRacing did make a pit stop, it seems, but it was actually quite a while ago now, and we obviously missed it in the midst of everything because they've had such a big gap. It's a little bit more difficult, and they are actually coming in once again. David Mocek is now out there, so I believe that they are obviously doing that because they could probably feel they can get to the end where they are at the moment. But they have already made a pit stop from what I can see about 30 laps ago. So it was quite a while ago, but obviously due to the lead, it's not the easiest to keep in touch with.
No, definitely not. We haven't been able to see an awful lot of them. They're now in P4 as a result of that pit stop. David Mocek will just be getting a feel for the track. And I think the track's definitely getting wetter in the last 20 or so minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because we've just been seeing a few more mistakes from everyone, struggling to find the limit of traction as it begins to decrease once more, because the sky has become dark again and the rain is still falling, and you can see the spray from miles off in the distance, still impairing the vision. It's through these turns especially where you're carrying a lot of speed, but if you carry a little bit too much, you'll touch that grass, and that will just bring an end to that lap, and potentially end in the barrier if you're really unlucky, like Pin Sim Drillers. But we're now going to be on a battle of Bentleys, because it's Remco Major in the undercover sim racing car, getting past Oliver Newman in the Joy racing car. Now, Joy, they've been doing all right. They've been kind of hanging around the P17 throughout the whole race, but Mahor really pulling away a little bit. And this is a replay, and we've got Bartzelwagen there on the X. Oh, that is a big spin for the Revo Satellite Racing driven by Tom Kapusta. Luckily didn't hit that other car that was on the exit, because it was quite a neat spin. Luckily there's a lot of room there, which allows you to try and navigate cars that are facing the wrong way.
Yeah, that's quite the interesting point, really. I mentioned it before, just in general with a lot of the rFactor 2 cars, the rear tyres are very important, just with the way that a lot of the cars work. And obviously if you're pushing it a little bit too much, or you go past a little bit of a slightly wetter patch, if you go offline on the exit, that sort of thing, that can be quite interesting. But also just due to what wing angle you choose. Obviously in the dry you're going to have quite low wings, and in the wet you're going to increase it quite a lot. But David Mocek here, your race leader, is going to be spun around there by the undercover car. So Mocek, fortunately, they got quite a big lead in terms of seconds, but that will, I would very much assume, give them diffuser damage. So that could hinder their speed and balance as we come towards this final hour of the race, as we see who's this De Crop now getting past Anthony Maris, or trying to anyway, getting past Anthony Maris, but can't quite get past. So De Crop is still in this one move car, whereas Flying Goat have done a driver swap there. And De Crop, definitely one of the faster drivers, easily can be up there in the top 10, but I think was caught up in those issues on the first lap in Sector 3, and is now getting the slipstream on the Mercedes, which isn't the fastest car in a straight line. But now on the inside, the Crop getting on the brakes and has made that move there up into 18th place.
Now, I think I know what the issue was with the Seawolf car, because we saw him struggling a lot. And I've heard that they put on and slick by accident, which is not very helpful. We're going to have another issue in that first chicane. That's the car that accidentally put on a slick. So I don't think that's been beneficial at all. It helped them on the straights, but in the turns, it's not beneficial at all. And there's an incredible lack of grip, especially when it's only one slick and the rest are wet tyres. So seeing the impact of that now, and that's very frustrating for Rob Moore. But we have Matthew Fennell right now, I believe, Matthew Fennell, and we've got his gap to his teammate 1.7 seconds. I think they swapped positions at some point not too long ago. I might be wrong in saying that though.
Yeah, they've had this. They've been side by side for quite a while now, haven't they? These two Speedy Mike cars. Pretty much since these two drivers got in, at least they've been in this little bit of a battle, been so close together, and they're in decent positions now. As he gets past, who was that? There's one of the Williams cars he got past. So is that Williams car struggling a little bit? They are a lap ahead, 2 places ahead, but a whole lap ahead as well. So they were just unlapping themselves. So I wonder if that Williams car is struggling a little bit there. That was a bit of an interesting place to unlap yourself. As we now jump on board with Maras and Slobodzian, only 1 second apart. And that Volante car was obviously, fortunately, the one that was involved with the DNF of the Wanako car. Unfortunately, there's only been a couple of DNFs in this race, despite the conditions, despite the difficulty of the track and all the spins. There's still only been a couple of DNFs in the whole race, which is really nice to see that a lot of drivers are getting towards this finish as we're coming up to an hour to go. But obviously, we had Drillers DNF, but earlier we did have Caspian and also Wanako. So still 30 cars remaining in this race.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one in that respect. Like, even with these really difficult conditions, the track has been relatively forgiving because although it is grass and no runoff, that grass has a lot of room between itself and the barriers, which is why we've only seen 1 or 2 DNFs as a result of that. And once more, taking the alternative line through the first chicane goes Mark Vates. Yeah, he forgot to brake, I think, there. And taking the escape route, maybe avoiding getting that track extension penalty, which is really not helpful in a lot of situations. But now we have Thomas Jacobs, that HM Engineering car, up into P13, so doing quite a good job just keeping strong. But I have to say, the Speedy Mike outfit doing a fantastic job with their 3 cars all in the top 11. If they can get up into the top 10 together, that'll be very beneficial for them, but that might be quite difficult because P10, that gap to Scuderia Mascala, is over 1 minute.
Yeah, some of these gaps have come so big. It's quite incredible, really. But that just shows you how many variables there are, and also just how good a job these top few teams are doing. And it's quite interesting that also with the strategy, it's completely all over the place. So we thought Burst have been dominating this race fairly comfortably, but they're still down in 4th place. And obviously, with only an hour and 9 minutes to go, once those guys ahead of them hit as well, they're going to be in a fairly good position from the guys around them as well. So how the strategy is going to play out is going to be very important, as we're seeing here. Current standings, Christian Michel for Cetres Nita Velox in the number 30 machine is leading the way from Dennis Jordan with Evolution Motorsports. And we have HM Engineering in 3rd place there. What we predicted is your net leader, Burst Esports, in 4th place. Speedy Mike Racing doing a really good job in the number 91 there, with Mwenwen having a really solid start to this race. And Francesconi and Pescaro up in 6th place. Go Team Racing, 4th place in the championship at the moment. They're doing a really good job there in 7th place as well. And Scuderia Mascala, we've got a couple of cars off there in the background as well, having a good race. Williams Esports, good recovery so far, getting into the top 9. And then the other Speedy Mike car, which I believe is the number 93 there, rounding out the top 10 as well. But 3 laps down on the leaders, which is quite incredible. Matthew Fennell here, P11, Speedy Mike Racing as well, in their 3rd machine. So 3 Speedy Mikes in the top 11, which is very good. And we have Pro Simtech in 12th place, HM Engineering in 13th, Core Team in 14th place. The other, Cetres Nita Velox, down in 15th place after suffering all those penalties and such earlier on, and a couple of spins as well. Then Undercover in 16th place, Joy Racing in 17th, Volante in 18th, Flying Goat in 19th, and Blackbirds Racing rounding out the top 20, but already 4 laps off the leader. Now 5 laps off the leader, we have another one of the core team cars, followed by one with esports, Pro Simtech, Absolute Motorsport, Pushrod Racing, and Revo Satellite Racing, who are already now down to being 6 laps off the pace. And then to finish off the top 30, and the top 30 drivers who are still in this race, we have core team, Seawolf, Scuderia Basilia and Omicron Racing as well. We've been struggling quite a bit and now many laps off the lead.
Now that Seawolf car, I think they put on all slicks actually, which especially as the race is getting a lot wetter, is I think where those mistakes started to come in, because they must have put on those slicks, maybe accidentally, but also it was as the track was beginning to get a whole lot worse in terms of conditions. However, now we've got the Williams eSports car right up the rear of Matthew Fennell in that Speedy Mike car. So those dreams of being in the top 10, they're there now. But can they hold on to those positions with Nikodem Wisniewski really beginning to put on some pressure? He's going to be looking to try and reclaim some of the time that the Williams eSports team have lost, because they didn't have the greatest start. They've had to do quite a lot of recovery driving. They have lots of pace. They won last time out at Imola, and they're going to be looking to try and continue that momentum on through the next rounds of the championship, which they might struggle with at the moment, that only being in P11 right now. However, with the speed that they're carrying, they should be able to start making their way up the order. The only problem is it's really spread out in some parts. But this is a replay of Nikodem Wisniewski leaving the pits. So there's obviously been the driver swap, and he moves over to the right, getting very close to that barrier. And you can see Matthew Fennell there running ever so slightly wide, but Wisniewski just couldn't find that position, which is why he finds himself behind that Porsche at the moment. However, how long he stays behind the Speedy White car is not going to be too long at all, given the amount of pressure he is piling on. Only a quarter of a second behind. He could get it on the straight if he can get the correct exit. That BMW has a lot of power. It can carry a lot of straight line speed. He's going to move to the inside. They are going to be side by side as they run along the straights. We're going to ride on board. Matthew Fennell, though, with a slight amount more speed. Nikodem Wisniewski, he's going to have a crack into turn one, getting really close to the rear. There is contact, getting too close to the rear, but he has got that position up into P10 as a result of Matthew Fennell having a slightly compromised line into turn one. And that's going to be P10 with the next Speedy White car in his sights if he can pull away.
Yeah, a little bit of contact there, but he got the move done. 10th place for him. And I should say he's got the other car just ahead of him as well, so certainly some opportunities, but then there is a good 35 seconds towards the Pescara car, but that is coming down as Pescara and Go Team Racing are both in the pit lane as well. But yeah, Williams have struggled a little bit, not just for the issues they had on the first lap, which to be honest they might have a bit of damage from as well, but it's just in general they haven't quite had the same pace. But then they, again, to be fair to them, they have also been in traffic as well, so it's been a very difficult race for them. In the interview after the last race, they did say they just wanted to have a bit of fun and this sort of stuff, but unfortunately every now and again you do get these difficult races. But not so difficult has it been for Burst Esports so far, but now this is going to get a little bit tricky, because David Mojek is only 3/10 behind Ferris Stanley, but Ferris Stanley still needs to make a pit stop, and that could be a little bit awkward because he's not really racing him, but at the same time he doesn't want to lose loads of time if he can avoid it.
Yeah, definitely, and I think he still needs to get out of that car because he's in that vehicle since the start of the race. But this is on board Rory McDuff, this is an angle you don't see all too much inside the McLaren's cockpit, and you can see not the biggest windscreen there, and it looks a lot lower down than that BMW he's trying to get past of Alice Claver. That gap now 0.7 of a second, and we're going to go off board now to David Moshek, who he doesn't want to battle too hard against Ferris Stanley because overall they're not actually fighting for position because of how the pit stops have worked out. And into the pits, I think, goes Ferris Stanley to make that pit stop right at the end of the second hour. So it was a long time coming. He'll be getting out of the pits now, getting out of the car now, and he will be being replaced. And it'll be interesting to see which driver takes that position. He's got a bit of side-by-side action here with David Mroszek, the race leader. And I think that's Tom Kubik there, putting a little bit of pressure on him. which I'm not sure he's going to be too fond of given the disparity in their positions. But this is Lucas Schramek. I think he's just got past Ludovic Ferrowy in that One Move Esports Bentley, which does look nice. As well as that Corvette, it's got a good livery. But is Ferrowy going to try and get that position back? Or is he? I think he's pulled into the pit lane, actually. So, no, he hasn't. Sorry about that. He just got off the camera angle. He doesn't quite have the power of the Corvette along the straight. And as they go through the first chicane, just nowhere to get through. It's very easy to park it on that inside apex and just control who stays where through that chicane, because there is, as I've said earlier, just one line. But Schramek is going to run slightly wide. Ferrowy, though, he's got to be careful because there's a lot of standing water around those curbs in turn 4 and that sweeping right-hander that it's part of. On the exit, though, he's going to keep the pressure on the core team Callaway Corvette, but he just isn't going to be able to squeeze through. We've got Nikodem Wisniewski up in the top right, P10 now. He's looking to close down on that Speedy Mike Porsche with the silver at the wheel, which is going to run slightly wide. That's going to benefit him. That gap now just 0.6 of a second. But here we go then. Ludovic Ferrowy down the inside through the last couple of turns, and he's got that done nicely. He is on the grass, though. Is he going to keep it going? Yes, he is. Just about holding on. That was very tense indeed.
Yeah, that's not the correct racing line, but he, well, I guess used it to his effect because he's managed to keep that position in 20th place. But it's interesting. In that sequence, you mentioned about the puddles are really starting to form, aren't they? This rain has got pretty heavy, and we have lost a couple of drivers now, for instance, as well, which is obviously not helping the situation a little bit. But those puddles obviously are going to be a little bit more dangerous, especially around the curbs, which are already hard enough as it is. So you don't want to go there. Oh, someone's gone way off there on the left. Couldn't even see who that was.
That
but they've
might be
gone
the Omicron car.
Very far off the track.
Yeah, that, as we just saw someone get away with it, someone else doesn't quite succeed. But Nikodem Wisniewski still putting that pressure on. But this is going to be, I think, a replay of the move by Ferrowy. You can see him send it down the inside there. Very risky, just about avoiding that puddle. However, on the exit, he just runs onto that curb. But I think just the sheer size of the Bentley makes it look even more impressive that he managed to keep that going on the track.
Yeah, indeed, he managed to keep it going and has managed to keep that position, which is very nice. I don't know if that technically counts maybe as an off-track overtake because the amount of extra speed he was able to take. But we'll leave that for someone else to decide, as we see Sancini here for Absolute Motorsport down in 22nd place. I don't think we mentioned this car at all in the whole race so far, but down in 22nd place, obviously not in the best race as well with that pushrod racing car, which I believe was one of the ones involved in that first lap incident that saw a number of drivers getting a bit of contact. They've just been in sort of recovery mode. But as we did the rundown, the drivers this far down, 5-6 laps off the pace, so they have really been struggling with pace as well. As Absolute Most will go for a bit of a half spin there, and that pushrod get up into that 22nd place.
Yeah, so this is David Yunt with the Scooter Rib. I think this is the car that went off just a lap or two ago. Yeah, he just carried a little bit too much speed, hit the grass once again. And he's ended up on a very different piece of tarmac to the one that he should be on. But he does manage to keep it going. And does he go into the pits after that as well? Yes, he does.
He actually recovered that pretty well considering the situation. Fortunately, there's actually a load of runoff and grass in that region before you're going to hit the barrier. That always helps out quite a lot. As we're now seeing this battle continue. Actually, I believe this is that one move car getting another lap on these drivers as we enter, or have entered I should say, the final hour of the 3 hours of Portland, and we're still waiting for a couple of drivers to do their stops, such as Dennis Jordan, only 11 seconds ahead of Burst Esport, but I do believe they're going to owe us another pit stop. It won't be very long, but they will definitely have to come back into the pits, I believe. So just be quite important to see if they're going to come out still in second place or if they're going to drop off the podium.
Yeah, these these pit stops you keep saying, but they're really the weather has really changed things up, and I think that David Moroshek looking very comfortable at the moment. 30 seconds clear of the car behind him, and he will get past that car that's currently sitting in first because he does owe a pit stop, and as is Mika Happinen in the Cetra's Nita Velic's car, which is in third. And overall a net second, because earlier it was running in second, but of course with that car currently in first, it won't be staying there for all too long once it makes that final pit stop. But he's 30 seconds off the leader, well 40 seconds I think, but this is going to be a replay of Remco Major, and I think this is similar to what we've seen before. Maybe just taking a little bit too much curb, and yeah, you can see how when you go over that curb on the left, it just pulls you off the track, and a little bit disorientated, but still managed to recover it quite well.
Yeah, that was almost identical, and that one may actually been the one that I saw as well, because they were almost identical. Quite difficult to work out which one that was or not, but either way, he and Dave Junt went for a bit of a spin, and that chicane seems to be probably the hardest corner on this track. It does have 12 corners on the track map. There's really only about 6 corners that you actually have to drive and think about, and there are certainly 6 tricky turning events, and it's also a bit of a weird track because obviously it's based off the drag strip, which is the start-finish straight. Then obviously you come into this sort of park area as well, but it's also got like a bit of a street track feel. It's quite an interesting one. It's certainly one that a lot of the drivers potentially get a bit frustrated with, but it's providing some very interesting racing. It's quite difficult to predict what is going on, and it's giving us a very different result as well. I mean, we've got HM Engineering up there in 4th place, we've got Speedy Mite in 5th, Mascala in 6th place. All 3 of those teams have not had the best start to the season, but they're doing a really good job here.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a really changed up order. That Speedy Mite, the third of the Speedy Mites, is currently running in P14, so you can see how dynamic as well the positions are at the moment, with that gap now from Williams Esports ahead just 6 seconds. So there's still a lot of change to be had with 55 minutes to go. We've got Rafael Zuma battling Tommy Kubek, the Blackbirds Racing McLaren versus the core team BMW. But it doesn't matter where you are in the order at the moment, there still seems to be battles that are going to ebb and flow as the race progresses. Pedro Pimenta pulling into the pits, and Rory McDuff taking P11 in the second Nita Velic's McLaren. But that looks like a little bit of a slide through turn 1. I think that just might be the way he's taking that first turn. But the race has ebbed and flowed as things have happened, as people have had spins, but also as pit stops have occurred, and as the weather has changed as well. It's been, as I said, extremely dynamic with what is going on track, and you can see already Roy McDuff, who was in a battle, has now got 12 seconds behind him and a very large gap ahead of him. So this is Dennis Jordan with the Evolution Motorsports car, currently in the lead. However, once he makes that pit stop, he'll drop down. Not quite sure where though. It depends how long his pit stop takes and all of that. But David Moroshek will take that first position, currently 36 seconds clear of the P3 Nita Velic's car. Just a fantastic drive so far from that Burst Esport car.
And also, Mojek has come in and he's gotten to pace fairly quickly. That gap to Dennis Jordan for Evolution has stayed around 11 seconds the last few laps that we've been looking at them a little bit as well. So really good job from him to just get in the conditions and get on the pace. Very good job from him, and just shows you what, well, even more confirming just how good a job that team is doing, and that's why they're leading the championship.
Yeah, and not only are they quick, but they're quick and consistent in their finishes, which is why they have that 35-point lead to second place in the championship. which I think are they just not racing this round, the Williams BenQ, or are they withdrawn from the championship?
I believe they're just not here this week.
Okay, but that's going to be really helpful if Burst Esports carry this home for the win. They are just going to extend that gap as we hit the halfway point. They're going to have a really significant lead already, and they just need to continue this momentum into the second half of the championship, and they should be able to bag it quite safely because of just the amount of pace and consistency they've had so far this season.
Yeah, certainly. It's a bit of a shame actually that Williams BenQ car hasn't attended this race, because obviously Stefanko and Burlak in that car, very fast drivers indeed, and just a shame that you couldn't see what they would have been capable of doing, because they were very good in the first few races of the season. As far as I'm aware, that they haven't sort of withdrawn or anything, so I do believe they'll be back. Just probably just couldn't attend this race for whatever reason. So at least we got the other Williams in, albeit they're down in 9th place at the moment. But those teams are really the ones that are going to put it to the likes of Burst and Evolution, who've really shown to be the top guys really to look out for in this series in the first half of the season.
Yeah, the Williams cars have brought, when they've been on it, they've brought a really good challenge, and you can see that from the Chill Blast car. That's, albeit currently in P10, it's had a lot of pace this race. I think it's been, instead of not being quick, it's just been really unfortunate with, of course, the start of the race and just trying to reclaim the time that they lost. But if they get onto the pace quickly again, they are going to be the ones that challenge Burst as we head through to this latter half of the championship. But overall, we've still got a long way to go. The championship is far from over, and although the Burst car has been doing so really well so far, the other cars could try and start making up those positions, and that's not the only championship battle, of course. Lower down the order, it gets really close, and these battles all need to be resolved as well. So people are driving, and they're going to be driving hard, because this championship, as I said, is far from over, and they've each got their respective positions to try and fight for. But the Pushrod racing car, P22, is 2 seconds off Enrico Ciancini in the Absolute Motorsport Corvette. He looks to be closing up a little bit. It depends whether he can close up enough to start making an attempt at a move, because there's still a relatively big gap, and you can see it expands and it contracts through different parts of the track where they've got different advantages, because it looks through these turns that the BMW is slightly quicker. However, along the straight, the Corvette seems to have the pace.
Yeah, the Corvette is a very sort of well-rounded car in the course of the BOP. Obviously, I believe there's been a slight adjustment to the BOP as well, but the Corvette is a very well-rounded car, and a lot of people chose it, especially for the GT Pro, GT Challenge series from rFactor 2 that happened during last autumn. But the reason why is just because in a sprint race format, that car was just one of the best. But when you get into the more endurance format, the BMW is very competitive, and that's why you can see such as Evolution Motorsports doing very well in that BMW. And also, for instance, Wanako, they were doing very good in a couple of races where they weren't having issues as well. But yeah, the Corvette was good because a number of people drove it as well. But I mean, if you look at up there, we've got McLarens up there, we've got Porsches up there as well. So there's all sorts of different cars, and it's good to see that it's fairly well-rounded and giving some fairly good variety, at least to do with the chassis choice.
Yeah, it's really good to see that the top 3 cars are all different manufacturers, and despite some of the teams having different gaps, I think it's mainly down to driver because I think the BOP has worked well. Maybe the Bentley not quite on the pace, but that might just be a combination of the track and conditions as well, just for this weekend. However, these guys, the Setros Nita Valix car in P3 with Mika Happinen at the wheel, they are doing a really solid job. And although we haven't seen them too much on the track battling people, they've maintained their consistency and they could be on for a really good result here. Finishing just behind the, I say just behind, finishing behind the Burst Esports because they've got a long way to the HM Engineering car behind them. That's 35 seconds. So on both sides, in fact, they've got the exact same gap, which is quite a stable situation for them to be in. And all they need to do really is just take it home for the last 45 minutes.
And I believe this car might be going to the end of the race. We'll have to see how it works out. But obviously, Evolution, I do believe, will need at least some sort of splash and dash. So potentially, depending how long that is, that could bring them into play. I think it is maybe a bit of a shot in the dark with that one, though. But they at least they've done a very good job this race indeed, and certainly showing that this McLaren is still very good and a very good choice. And it really just proves down to, in the end, that it is really down to your drivers and how well you execute your race, and they've done a pretty good job so far in the opening 2.25 hours.
Yeah, they have, and I think that's what we've seen, that those that managed to make it through the first turn incidents, just the first lap incidents in general, they've been able to put in quite a good race, because we have only got 45 minutes to go now. We're beginning to enter the end game of the race, where it's more about counting backwards from the checkered flag rather than counting forwards. Although it's only a 3-hour race, it's a long race because it's only split between those two drivers. They've got to, especially on a short and narrow track, which is packed with 30, well, now it's 30, initially 33 cars. It's really keeping the drivers' concentration high, because they've got to keep an eye out for who is coming up to lap them and who they're coming up to lap. And it makes for a very intense experience, especially around Portland, because it is just such a narrow and short track.
Yeah, intense is probably the word of the day when it comes to this. It's so difficult to do this track right, 10 laps in a row, let alone, the hundreds of laps pretty much that we're going to be doing in this race. We've obviously done quite a few already, such as the nature of the track being so short. You obviously get through so many laps, and especially with that fast chicane, to do that right so many times in a row, it is very difficult. I mean, we've done over 100 laps so far, so we're going to be getting somewhere towards probably 130, 140 laps at least in total. So to do each corner correct that many times in these conditions is very tricky indeed. Obviously, we don't do this track in the full VEC, which would obviously have probably ended up being something like a 6-hour race with multiclass, but even then, in this condition, it's still a very difficult track.
Yeah, and with these drivers, because everything got shuffled around so early on with the weather as well, you had drivers of different paces, or of the same pace but on different laps, which added to the confusion and the difficulty of just trying to be consistent as well, because we've had battles between those who one lap aren't battling, a few laps later they're on the same lap and they are battling. And we've also had the changes in position, we've had the changes of drivers as well, and because everything seems to have calmed down a little bit now, but earlier when the new drivers were getting in, they had to adapt very quickly because the track conditions were really wet around that stage of the race, and also the competition was really close as well, so it would have been quite the experience getting in halfway through this race and finding yourself perhaps in the middle of a battle, but in the middle of what can only be described as a very busy track because of how short it is and how everything just got so mixed up at the start.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I don't want to jinx anything, but I believe we had one more DNF now. So I believe it's only 4 DNFs now. So 29 cars still out there, which is really good considering the situation. So that is, you can't really ask for more than that. To be honest, that is a very good ratio. And despite a couple of the drivers spinning here and there hasn't been any like huge collisions either. A lot of the drivers have done sort of their own thing. As Enrico Sancini's got a penalty for something as well, so he's going to have to come in and serve that in the next couple of laps, which is going to help their bid for some decent points. That's all.
Yes, and I've just had a quick look at the GT3 Discord, and it looks like Simon Marshall's put his first lap. I'll check that out in just a second because it seems to be quite chaotic. But yeah, I think only three. Oh no, P25 is no longer in the race. However, yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens there. But Gonzalo Rodriguez really quite close to that Bentley there, trying to take the position off the undercover sim racing, but not quite able to do it. That's P13 right now, but only a tenth behind because this is the on-track battle, and we've seen how it's ebbed and flowed. The battles on track. We've now found ourselves in a battle seemingly out of nowhere, with the undercover car just about holding on with Remco Major at the wheel. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that name. But along the straight, you can see how there's differences in where the car is quickest. Because Rodriguez there, not sure, he wasn't quite sure which car to get behind for the slipstream along the straight. But through the first couple of turns, there's the Nita Velix McLaren behind as well. But this is going to be a replay of Remco Major taking that position off Gonzalo Rodriguez. So he got it into turn 7. It looks like he went from the outside, held the outside using the might of the Bentley, holding on and keeping that Porsche on his inside. He just about managed to squeeze him past through the exit and around turn 9, keeping the inside, and it's very risky to try and go side by side at the end of this straight. So of course Rodriguez backing off there, deciding it's better to try and get to the end than risk not finishing the race at all just for a position.
Yeah, definitely. It's a horrible chicane, really, for racing. Such a difficult chicane, and to back out of that's probably the smartest thing to do. As we now have Thomas Jacobs trying to get past some lap traffic there. Got the Joy Racing team, who are down in 17th place, so a lap down there. And even though it's only 3 positions, still being a lap down just shows you how big the gaps have found themselves. And now he's trying to let through someone else as well in the background. But Thomas Jacobs trying to now catch down Rodriguez. Only 1.5 seconds, getting very close as we enter the final 40 minutes of the race. This again to the point where the driver's going to have to start working out what they're doing with fuel as well, making sure they've got enough fuel to get to the end, make sure they've got enough tyres for need to drive swap. Probably going to need to do that very shortly as well, and making sure basically the car is ready to get to the end of the race.
Yeah, indeed, because there are only 40 minutes to go, and I just had to look at that clip from Simon Marshall. Yeah, very intense. We saw some of the drivers have quite a few spins, quite a few incidents around there, but as well, Gonzalo Rodriguez beginning to find himself in multiple battles now because he has got that HM Engineering McLaren closing up behind him. So this Speedy Mike car, it was in P10 about half an hour ago, dropped to P14, now in P13. He's going to be trying to hold on to that position, but it's going to be a little bit difficult depending on the pace that Thomas Jacobs can carry, because through this last part of the race, it's going to be these positions that are being made up are going to start to be the final positions in the race. So this is where people are going to start pushing to close up the small gaps. But if it's a big gap either side, they're going to have to just settle down now, try and take it to the end, because there's not much else they can do unless something happens around them. But you can see now, yeah, Thomas Jacobs really catching up to Gonzalez. That gap now under a second. There's Betabello there. 4 laps to the leader. He's 30 seconds off the HM Engineering car, but up ahead, the HM Engineering car might be able to take P13 because that gap now just 0.2 of a second to the Speedy Mike Porsche, and it looks like that's going down even more. So it'll be interesting to see how he tried to make a move that clearly didn't succeed. He's still behind, but definitely putting the pressure on Gonzalez at the moment.
Yeah, certainly is, and that HM Engineering car's having a pretty decent day as well, up in 14th. So it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy race with some drivers having some better races. Obviously helps with a couple of the guys a bit further up not racing, because obviously we've already mentioned that the Williams BenQ car isn't here, but also R8G Esports withdrew, so they're not here either. So that obviously opens up some doors some other teams to try and get into those positions, but obviously you still need to have a good race. And it looks like actually the rain has sort of stopped again, hasn't it? Window wipers are off, that racing line's happening. I think that person was trying to cool their tyres, as we have LS Plever now trying to overtake the Muscala car, which is basically unlapping himself, and there's probably actually a couple of laps between those guys. Alice Plever down in 16th place, getting past that 7th place Muscala car, who is flashing, although to be fair, he is allowed to unlap himself, but he does now need to get away from the blue flags. Otherwise, he will have to adhere to them and let him pass once again.
So Dennis Jordan there, sorry to interrupt, he's just come out of the pits in P2, which is going to be really interesting now with 35 minutes to go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's actually got a gap to P3 as well, so he should be fairly comfortable there in that 2nd place. So Evolution Motorsports have had a very good showing here in Portland. Obviously got up there into 2nd place, or at least in the podium places very early on, and then through strategy have been able to get past that Knight of Alex car as well. So a very good job from them, and in part that was obviously from the pretty decent first stint from Leon Bock, but also they were sort of involved in that 4 wide section at the beginning of the race into turn number 1, and somehow they came out fairly okay with that. Obviously we'll have to see in post-race checks with the IRRs if anything comes out, but for now that is what it is. And the person who got spun around in that is this Williams car now with Wisniewski in there, but they're trying to get this other position, and now maybe 8th place is up for grabs.
Yeah, he's been following really close behind Opportuni in the Pescara ATP Auto Tyler car for the last lap or so. He is really keeping that pressure up, and I know that Bots Wodjian has apologised for hitting Nico Barkley, but look at this, Wisniewski really putting on the pressure. That was risky, and I think slightly unnecessary, trying to stick his nose in there, because I don't think there was anything to be gained. But here there is, on the exit of turn 7, really trying to get that traction down, but not quite succeeding. He's not had the greatest exit, but with the slipstream, he's going to have the inside line given to him by Adriano Opportuni. Opportuni keeping the inside line, under braking. They are going to be side by side. Can he hold on to the position just about? But for how much longer is he going to be able to keep this up? Because Wisniewski is probing every single opportunity he can, just trying to force that opening from the car in front. He's really piling on the pressure as they head along the straight now. He has got the slipstream. He's going to move to the inside, under braking through the first chicane. It's going to be very close. They're still side by side, trying to go for the cutback move on the exit of the 2nd pot, getting contact again. They are ridiculously close as they head into turn 4. Wisniewski has a look at the inside line. He's not going to be able to get that room. This is really close between the two of the drivers. You can see up ahead there's still spray. Now this is where he had a look at trying to get that position last time, trying to force the opening through turn 7 now. Is Opportuni just going to park it on the apex and try and block Wisniewski from taking that position? It's very possible, because on the exit they're equally matched. So I think this move is going to have to be made into turn 1.
Yeah, he certainly has the pace to make this move, and it could be good because the next car's only 3 seconds up the road and there's still half an hour left in this race. But can he go down the inside now into the final chicane? That is going to be a very dodgy move, but he has effectively pushed off Opportuni, but not by himself, just by putting him in an awkward position and a bit of contact there through the final chicane. Now they're going side by side out onto the main straight, and Speedy Mike car has got onto the back of them as well because of all of this. There could be a double overtake in some form with the Speedy Mike car getting involved as well. But who's going to come out on top as we go side by side into turn number 1? Opportunity goes late on the brakes. Bit of lag there from the HM Engineering car, and a contact once again. So Wisniewski still can't get past, but he's going to now have to go around the outside of turn 3, which will be the outside of turn 4. That's going to be a very ballsy move if he can go around the outside here. As now there's a bit of contact, a bit more contact, as Speedy might come down the inside. Matthew Fennell has got past, so Wisniewski has actually lost a position in all of this. He's not going to be happy about that at all, because there's a decent amount of contact, unfortunately, between these cars as well. And now Matthew Fennell has the opportunity to get up into 8th place, so Wisniewski is going to be a little bit annoyed with that one.
Yeah, that was some really tight passing, and Matthew Fennell just came up on the back of them, seemingly out of nowhere. I know that Wisniewski, I think he incited some of the contact. It was a bit like touring car racing through the first part of that lap. Both of them responsible. Fortunately, no heavy contact. And through here last time out, I think it was more down to to Adriano on the on the braking zone, having that outside line, which is not very helpful through that final couple of turns. However, along the straight again, I think the Porsche doesn't have that speed along the straight. Well, they've all got the slipstream. You can see Wisniewski getting as close as you like through that braking zone. Now, this is going to be a replay of Nikodem Wisniewski through turn 1 last time out, and you can see that HM Engineering car, very scary, and you had the Pescara car on his outside. That was just a light contact, but again they touch, and as they head through turn 4, they're still side by side. He turns in a little bit on the Pescara car, although the Pescara car outbroke himself slightly, and on the power, Wisniewski a little bit twitchy. However, they are still in this order as they head through yet another lap with almost half an hour to go. Just 1/6 of the race remaining. And it looks like Matthew Fennell, he's going to move to the inside of the Pescara car. Can he get it under braking? Can he do what Wisniewski failed to do in his Porsche? Can Wisniewski get through? Yes, he can, because the Pescara car's off. So's the Porsche. And it's going to be P8 for Wisniewski. And the Porsche's off once more, meaning that the Pescara car is going to finish that bit in P9. That was very, very close.
So another double overtake. Before, is Fennell getting past both of these, and now he's lost both of those positions once again. But in the course of that as well, he's managed to get past Opportunity. Finally, the satellite car goes quite late on the brakes there to get past the core team racing as well in the foreground. But Matthew Fennell there, unfortunately, going off quite wide. There was a tiny bit of contact, I think, just as they got to the apex of the second part of the chicane as well. An Opportunity now has lost that position, but Wisniewski can now finally go and try and catch down Muscala for seventh place as well. So let's see this replay. Yeah, just a bit of contact actually on the first apex, and then both of them, one each side, just parted ways, and Nikodem manages to get in the middle of both of them. Yeah, just a tiniest bit of contact was enough for both of them to miss the chicane.
Yeah, I think the problem with that turn is going side by side through there is never going to quite work, just because of how tight the line is at that speed. And yeah, as you said, they parted ways, a little bit like the Red Sea for Wisniewski to take that position. Now he has got to push to get up to the Scuderia Muscala car, as there's half an hour to go. That's only 1 second actually, and given the pace of Wisniewski, it is very possible that he takes this position. It depends how much of a fight though. No, there's 4.5 seconds, sorry, to the Scuderia Muscala car, and Opportunity, of course, isn't going to let Wisniewski get away with that one. Still remaining relatively close behind. He's going to try and close that gap up still, although it looks like he's dropping back ever so slightly. They've different speeds on different parts of the track, but it's going to be interesting, because once they catch up to Muscala, if the Scuderia Muscala car, if they do, it will give Opportunity the opportunity to try and catch up to Wisniewski again, and we could see yet another three-way battle, perhaps with a different outcome, because Matthew Fennell as well, although he's 2 seconds back, if they all catch up and they all concertina together, or well, not in contact, but if they all close up behind each other in a queue, we could see once more quite a drastic change in the order as we head towards the end of the race with David Roszek 20 seconds in the lead.
Yeah, he's been gifted such a nice position, hasn't he? Simic did a really, really good opening couple of stints and then has handed it over. Has Fenway, is he going a bit slow there? Or was he just letting pass the car? I wonder if he's been off again there in that final sequence. It looked like he was going a bit slow, but it could be just letting through Dennis Jordan there for the bit of the traffic. He's going to see a replay now of Matthew Fennell in this final sector. And what is he going to do? Once again, goes a little bit too fast there into that second part. He's going to go off. Can he keep it on? No, he can't quite. But I think he's going to keep out of the barrier just, although he's obviously going to lose a bit more time all the way down the straight as he was entering it so slow as well.
I think that's going to cost him his prospects of a position, of a finish higher than P10 as a result, because now he's 7 seconds behind the next car, that Pescara BMW. However, Wisniewski is closing up. That gap now down to just 4 seconds to Scuderia Mascala. I don't think that Fennell's going to be making up any more positions, so that's a BMW going very slowly on the inside. But Dennis Jordan here, with Mika Hakkinen behind him, that's 16 seconds. He should be safe, as long as he's not 1 second a lap slower, which he shouldn't be. Although you never quite know towards these later stages in the race. And he's got P5, I think, behind him, that Speedy Mike car, that is doing really a fantastic job. But Opportuni again, catching up to Wisniewski. That gap to 1 second, it was up to 2. So I think Wisniewski's made a mistake somewhere, because he's lost time to that Scuderia Mascala car as well. Yeah, we'll see through here. It seems to be this final chicane is the bane of everyone. He hit the curb that upset the car, and he's gone for a little bit of a detour, managed to save it a little bit better than Fennell did just a lap ago. But that's going to cost him time, and that's not what he wants, and he's trying to close up. He is still closing up to the Scuderia Mascala car. We've got Fernando Carato here with Tom Capusta behind him. That gap apparently 1 lap. However, Capusta with Arujo, Andre Arujo in the ProSimTech Bentley, no, BMW rather. This could be an interesting battle as well. So as we enter these last 25 minutes, we've got multiple battles beginning to emerge again. It could be between these guys for P22, and it could be further up the order as well for P7, but any position finish high you can get could make the difference towards the end of the championship, especially when some of these gaps are really, really tight. And we're going to have a look now. Arujo having a look down the inside, but Capusta just beats him on it on the brakes. And he doesn't quite manage to carry the speed he needs, as he gets a lot of lag. As that is very interesting, but that is not good news for Arujo, because he's dropping down the order. Has he been hit though while he's had that glitch as he rejoins the track just in front of a Speedy Mike car? I think he's gotten away with that, apart from losing a fair amount of time.
That was a bit of a weird one, because it looked like he was sort of spun as well. I don't know if that's because of lag. Very weird. Indeed, but either way, you're coming in for a pit stop with 24 minutes to go. So if he was taking fuel, that wouldn't have been too much at all, as one of the HM engineering cars, I think in the foreground there, was spun around. Don't know which one it was. Hopefully it wasn't the one in 4th place, because they are in a good position, as Matthew Fennell seems like he was coming into the pit lane as well. It was the car in position for the number 33, Kevin Ryan, going for a spin. We've lost count of how many drivers have gone for a spin in that final sequence of corners, and now he's a minute behind 3rd place. So it doesn't look like a podium is on the cards for these guys, really, but he is still 20 seconds of a car ahead.
That is very close indeed to the other cars.
Yeah, he was very lucky that it didn't get collected. That could have been devastating for that entry, who is having a very, very good race. Ferry Stanley starting off, and then Kevin Ryan coming here to finish the job. And they are going to be very happy, considering, remember, this car has got 0 points for the rest of the season. So they've done very good indeed to get up to 4th place in this race.
Yeah, I think you've got to give it to them. That's a fantastic drive, first by Fennell, to get them into a really high position. And Kevin Ryan, although he's had that spin, I think the majority of the drivers have gone off at track at some point or another, especially at that turn. So they're both doing a really good job. They're pretty safe at the moment in P4. And for a first points finish, I think they can be quite happy with that when the checkered flag is waved. But Matthew Fennell and Rory McDuff, the Porsche versus the McLaren. This is the battle for P10 now. So I was saying earlier how Matthew Fennell wasn't going to get anything higher than P10. He's had, did he have a pit stop or have an off? Because he's lost 40 odd seconds to that car in front. Maybe he had a drive through or something. But he has got a lot of pressure behind him now, and a P10 finish is going to be what he has to defend here now. So this was Tom Kubik through the first chicane, and
there was contact.
That was the glitch, wasn't it? That's a big hit to the Corvette. I'm not really sure what happened there. I think his internet must have timed out or something for a moment. But look how close this is between Rory McDuff and Matthew Fennell. That gap, less than a quarter of a second, as he tries to go for the gap down the inside. That is a fantastic move if he can make it work, and he does, really exploiting the gap that wasn't too obvious left there by the Speedy Mike car, and that's going to be P10, which he'll be very happy with. But also, we've got Wisniewski now right behind that Scuderia Muscala car. With 20 minutes to go, it's going to be quite the job for Muscala to hold on to that P7. With Wisniewski applying the pressure and the speed that he currently has.
When Wisniewski got past, there was a gap of 5 seconds, which he has easily done. And not only that, but he's pulled away from Pescara as well. So that is purely on the speed that Wisniewski has got, which just shows you that Williams have really not been able to show their pace. It all started, as we said, from that incident in lap 1, turn 1. But that's just how it goes sometimes. And now he's getting the slipstream on Christian Muscala into the final chicane, but he's actually lifted off. He knows it's best to just wait through this section of corners. It's too difficult, or too easy, I should say, to make a mistake. And now coming out onto the start-finish straight. But that McLaren is fairly handy in a straight line. So it's going to be difficult for the BMW to get past without having the slightly longer straight. Here coming into turn 1 on this lap, 20 minutes to go. He's not going to be quite close enough, but I would reckon that this is possible for Wisniewski to get past. He just needs to line it up nicely and not rush the move, because otherwise that could put the position or the overtake in jeopardy. We already saw earlier he did have a few struggles to get past, but then was a bit fortunate to be gifted those couple of positions.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to want to stick around too long, though, because the longer these two battle, the more opportunity that Opportuni is going to have to start catching up. Although currently they're matching pace at the moment, that is going to change quite soon. Muscala still holding on. But Wisniewski, he's really sticking close through that windy first couple of turn complexes, and then along the back straight, where it's always a little bit risky to try and go for these moves. And you can see they're just getting very, very close with Christian Muscala. However, I don't think that Muscala is going to be able to hold on to this too much, because Wisniewski is just really good at putting on that pressure and just trying to force the gap if he's not being offered one.
Yeah, you can't force a gap. It's either there or it's not, unfortunately. This is a good part of the track to make a move, but Christian blocks him off there nicely, just keeping down on the... Oh, he's gone for a bit of a slide. He lost the rear end slightly, and this could give him an opportunity as we come around towards this hairpin corner, where you're going to be able to sort yourself out, get yourself in a good position. Coming onto this back straight, can Nick it and then finally get the acceleration? No, he can't. So Christian, once again, getting a decent enough exit out of the crucial corners to keep this position. And I think the longer that he keeps him behind, the less likely it is that Nicodem is going to be able to get up to Go Team Racing. So Go Team Racing are looking good to get a 6th place finish here. Having said that, Nicodem is getting very close as to this final corner, but once again, Christian gets an awesome exit and is looking good to hold on to this position.
Yeah, I think Wisniewski might be getting a little bit hot under the collar because he seems to be a little bit too heavy on his right foot when exiting these corners. You can see him having to do a lot of correction. He went onto some standing water earlier, but what this does mean is that Opportuni, he's already gained about half a second. I say that, his side, he's dropping back behind again. But if this battle carries on for too long, he is going to be able to start making up time and potentially some positions with 17 minutes to go. But now you can see only the podium positions right now are on the lead lap, which just goes to show how quick that Burst Esports car is.
Yeah, they've had an unbelievable race, haven't they? And Mojek has actually pulled away a couple more seconds from Dennis Jordan in the last 10 laps or so. So definitely showing that those guys are the quickest this season, to be honest. I mean, we don't know what Williams could have done had they not had that. I'm sure it would have been a very close race, but either way, I'm sure Burst would have been there at least fighting for 1st or 2nd place, because it seems that they're just a slight step ahead of all the guys so far. It is pretty crazy, actually, that now only the podium is on the lead lap. Out of 33 cars that started this race, 30 of them are lapped, which is an incredible achievement by these guys. Obviously, it's a shorter lap, which helps. But even if you do the maths and add that up towards the distance of an average track, even down to 7th place is now 2 laps behind. So that's pretty incredible achievement. But that just shows you the pace of these cars at the front. And even with the top 3 teams being different manufacturers as well, it just shows you that it's really the teams that are doing a good job here, and the drivers.
Yeah, definitely. And Andre Arujo there getting a penalty in almost the last 15 minutes, which is quite frustrating, especially when these back positions are going to be very hard to recover, even if you come out close behind another driver. As you can see here, by Christian Muscala just being very good at holding off Nicodem Wisniewski. He's held him off for 5 minutes. He needs to do that 3 more times though. And with the amount of pressure Wisniewski is able to apply, and just the way he can put his car in very threatening positions, is Muscala going to crack and make a mistake? Because we see earlier, he did get a little bit flustered, but he just about held it on during the exits of turns. And I'm having a look now. I think the windscreen wipers have stopped again, so the rain has relented. The track does look relatively dry, and that could affect grip levels because these cars are still on wet tyres, and if they wear a lot, which they'll be relatively worn at this point, that's going to have another effect. But that's only if the track starts to dry quite quickly, because it doesn't appear to be raining too much at the moment.
Yeah, the rain's been a bit weird, hasn't it? It's been sort of on and off. It has been cloudy the whole race, obviously been live as well. It is has the ability to sort of do that, and that obviously adds to it because it means it's always changing conditions. Oh, a bit of a bump there potentially in the final corner as well, but there's always changing conditions. There's always different grip levels coming into every single lap. You don't quite know what it's going to be like, and there is Wisniewski having to let past Evolution Motorsports just to rub salt in the wounds of how much struggle their day has been. And as we see, Davin Mojek, Dennis Jordan, Hubbanen and Kevin Ryan rounding out the top 4 on the screen there as we're looking coming through turn 9 as well. Then we've got Cameron Sansana for Speedy Mike Racing, Go Team Racing in 6th, Muscala in 7th place, and Williams Esports there in 8th place. And on the next page we have Pescara, ATP, Auto Tyler in 9th. And just behind them is the other Knight of Elix in 10th place, followed by Speedy Mite and the other HM Engineering. And Speedy Mite again in 13th place with their 3rd car, Undercover in 14th, Core Team in 15th, and Pro Syntech in 16th place. Quite a few double teams actually getting quite high up in the race today. Then One Move Esports in 17th, Volante in 18th, Joy Racing in 19th, and the Flying Goat team are in 20th position, with Pushrod Racing in 21st, Satellite in 22nd, Core Team in 23rd, and Seawolf Net Race in 24th position. And then as we come back out onto the start, a little bit of a pause there, but onto the start finish straight, Nikodem Wisniewski is still there in that 8th place. And I think this actually might be a replay of him going round the outside, bit of contact with Muscala, and that is how he is still there in 8th place. So he's definitely able to at least try and get past, but I think that could have been a bit of a lag sequence. We'll have to see how that one works out, but that means Opportuni now is getting quite close behind as well. So Opportuni's been able to catch up and get close towards these guys as we come towards this final part of the race.
Yeah, now Opportuni being close behind, that's going to really play into Christian Muscala's favour, because now not only does Nikodem Wisniewski have to look ahead, he's also got to keep his eyes behind as well, which means he can't go for too many outlandish moves on that Scuderia Muscala McLaren, because if he does so and it goes wrong like we saw earlier, where it could have gone slightly worse had there been heavier contact, that is going to compromise not only his race, but potentially Muscala's as well, and that will mean that overall he will lose positions because Opportuni is that presence behind him now. Then he might gain, so he's going to have to be quite sensible now, because up until this point he has made some relatively risky moves. He's had a little bit of contact, but this is going to be a replay of Dennis Jordan and the Evolution Motorsports car trying to get past Muscala, and that's where I think Wisniewski tried to find a way through, but this car definitely benefited. But yeah, you can see Muscala there. He was forced onto the wet line as they went side by side into turn 7. Dennis Jordan kind of blocking, and I don't know, did Muscala slightly overcook that into turn 7 there?
Yeah, it's getting to that difficult point on the race, getting to that nervous point in the race. Only 10 minutes to go now, and there's another 5 minutes gone that Christian's been able to hold on for. But yeah, a bit of contact between these guys always, a little bit difficult. In general, there's been probably just a little bit too much contact in this race so far with a lot of the overtakes and battles. This is the situation we're in. As someone has spun there coming on, I think it's one of the Pro Sim Tech BMWs maybe, spinning as we come onto the start-finish straight. 10 minutes to go exactly. And once again, Wisniewski is following behind. And it just shows you that even if you have the raw speed, you still have to find a way to get past. It's not a given. And he has struggled a little bit with that, as with other drivers today.
So this is once more a replay of that failed move by Wisniewski, and I think Muscala just slightly misjudged his braking point there, which is worked in combination with the Evolution car trying to get past, and just meant that there was contact there, which is unfortunate, but there was nothing huge, which is perhaps the most important thing. And the windscreen wipers have stayed off for now, but it's going to be on the exit here. Nikodem Wisniewski is going to try and make that move, because Christian Muscala is halfway to holding on to that 7th position. Can he take it to the end though? Because such a result would be absolutely huge for the team, and it will really boost them in the championship, because they are showing some real promise at the moment. But we've also got Adriano Opportuni behind Nikodem Wisniewski, which is really interesting, because also we found ourselves in quite a lot of traffic. We've got the Flying Goat, but it's going to have to be side by side. Is that the Seawolf car? Yes, it is. That's going to open up the gap to Wisniewski between him and Opportuni. That's now 1 second as a result of that. Not much they could have done. However, Wisniewski is still really close behind Muscala as they try and navigate more traffic. That's the Flying Goat Mercedes. This is really, really close stuff, and the outcome of it is going to be determined perhaps soon. Perhaps it will stay like this, because you can see really pushing on the throttle is Wisniewski, trying to force that gap, which Christian Muscala just isn't offering. However, is he going to be able to just keep it this way? it's going to be hard because the Opportunity now has dropped back to 2 seconds behind, which is going to hurt Christian Muscala because now Wisniewski has got that breathing room to try and go for a little bit more risky moves, try and push a little bit harder, even if it means they go slightly slower together. But Opportunity should be able to close up quite quickly.
Yeah, Wisniewski just struggles out that final corner to stay within the proper slipstream zone. So he always has to do it right at the end of the straight. And he hasn't been able to get side by side for quite a few laps now. But he is very close during the corners. But maybe he needs to slightly rethink the strategy to make sure he's closer on the exit of the corners and not on the entry. But just to give you context as well, this Scuderia Muscala car is 22nd in the championship. They have not had the season that they would have wanted at all. But to be fair to them, this is the team's debut season. Even Christian himself only did a couple of races, or like the second half of VEC. It was actually my teammate in VEC last year, so he's very new to all of this. So for these guys being up here against someone like Wisniewski, who's the Le Mans virtual winner, is big place. But now maybe it's had a bit of contact in the hairpin, but now he's going side by side into this final chicane. This is going to have to be a full send move. If he's going to go around the outside, there's going to be a bit of contact there, and he's going to go onto the grass. This could be even... Oh, that was so close to a big spin there.
That's going to cost him to Opportunity.
And now, as you say, Opportunity's going to get past, and that was a high risk, high reward, well, maybe some would say low reward move, because it was only for 7th place. But yeah, he's once again... Wisniewski's tried to get a place, but has lost it as well, and that was probably a little bit too much, because going around the outside of that first part of that chicane is never, ever going to work unless you full send it and get a whole car length ahead, which he didn't. And on that second apex, that was so close to him tapping the back of Muscala, and that would have been a huge crash.
Indeed, I think that was a slightly naive move by Wisniewski. I think he got a little bit too frustrated sitting behind Christian Muscala. I mean, he's 1.5 seconds off Opportunity, but this is going to be that replay because we haven't really seen any move work side by side through here, and this is yet another example because on that outside line, unless you're ahead, they touch on the entry and he's forced onto the grass as a result of his own doing. But the fact that he managed to not hit Muscala and that not end in complete tears is, I think, the only good thing to have come out of that move.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, so I'm looking at the replay. Muscala gave him every bit of room. He was even away from the apex on the second apex as well, allowing Nicodem to be there. But obviously, Nico went in a little bit too fast. But yeah, such a difficult track to overtake on. Sometimes, to be fair, you do have to try these things. But unfortunately, that's the second time now that Nico's sort of been off track in an overtaking position like that. But there's only... under 5 minutes to go now, so very little time for him to work. And now he's got to get past 2 drivers, as he's only a second behind Opportunity and then another 2 seconds behind Muscala.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether he manages to find his way past Opportunity. He's definitely quicker, but he struggled quite hard initially to get past Adriano Opportunity that first time. This second time, I think Opportunity is going to be defending with his heart because there are only 5 minutes, if you include that last lap that we'll have to complete, depending on where the leader arrives at the line on that final lap when the clock hits 0. It's going to be very difficult now for Wisniewski to finish higher than 9th unless he goes extremely aggressive, and around this track aggression is less likely to lead to success than on other tracks. So this is going to be a replay of Wisniewski, and you're going to see just how close this came to tears. There is almost nothing in that, which is very scary for Muscala, who would have been an innocent party if that had been a collision.
Yeah, that would have been really not nice. It's always one of those weird situations as well, because generally the penalties are sort of given, as we see at the start of each race, are given as like a drive-through, so it wouldn't even affect the result for this one, unfortunately. But fortunately, nothing happened, and we are back to where we are. But now we've got Rodriguez defending from Major, as we have only a few laps left of this race. And this is right in the middle of the points, 13th and 14th place. So this would be a nice result for either of them. And unfortunately, the Speedy Mike car has dropped down a little bit. They were up towards the top 10, but even then, 13th place would be a fairly nice result. But they do have a Les Pleather on the back of them as well. So coming along the start-finish straight, the sun is starting to come out, and the track is drying up quite a lot. Very little spray at all, if any, in some sections. Now the drivers are trying their final bits to try and make an overtake. So once again, we're going to see this overtake of Wisniewski, and yeah, you might want to close your eyes for this one. As you see, he's just going to almost catch the back of Muscala there. So close. So close. But fortunately, nothing happened, and Wisniewski managed to save it as well. So he is now going to have another opportunity at getting past Adriano Opportuni, as we have only 2 minutes to go now. So probably 3 laps in total, including the final lap after this one.
Yeah, now this is going to be really interesting because Wisniewski is very competitive. He will want to finish as high as he possibly can, and he'll feel frustrated that they're not in a higher position as a result of those initial stages of the race. Oh my gosh, what's that?
That was one of the Pro Simtech cars, had a bit of a lag. And I think Opportuni was Opportuni's gone, hasn't he? So I don't know where he went, but he is. Oh, he's going, because that is him there on the back straight. So he's lost some time there, but he definitely made some heavy contact. That is such a shame, because that car in general has had a pretty good race so far, despite a couple of issues here and there earlier on. They've come back, they've got themselves into a good position, and unfortunately they've lost 5 seconds and probably have some damage due to that. I believe it was that Pro Simtech car in front of him having a bit of a lag moment.
Yeah, that is incredibly frustrating, because he had driven such a good race, just defending for this last half an hour, just trying to keep that Williams car behind him. It got past, but he managed to find his way through once more, and the fact that it was a car whom he wasn't racing that he had a collision with. Fortunately, I think he did a 360 actually, and managed to keep on driving. But the loss of time is just irredeemable at this point in the race. It's too much for him to regain. But even so, I think 9th position after the drive they've had is not too bad. It will just be really frustrating that they've lost that 8th position not from racing, but from a collision that they didn't cause. I don't think they caused anyway. I'll preface that.
Yeah, no, it definitely didn't look like. I think we might be guessing a replay here. So this is from Kevin Ryan. So this was behind those guys, and you see, yeah, those are just a BMW there. He just flicked to the right hand side a little bit, unfortunately. We're now at 0 minutes remaining as well. So the number 49 Burst Esport is going to be coming on the final lap. The next time they get to the start finish line will be the checkered flag. And what a race it has been for that Burst entry. Yanni Simicic with an incredible first couple of stints, handing it over to David Mrocek, who has finished this has finished this off really nicely, and come around the final corner. They're going to be winning the 3 hours the 3 hours of Portland.
Yeah, they are, and they're going to take the checkered flag now after a fantastic drive. You can see weaving in celebration, the checkered flag waving up in the top right of the screen, and it's going to be first place for the Burst car, which has done a fantastic drive so far today. Then we've got Dennis Jordan. He'll be coming home second. Really good drive by the Evolution Motorsports BMW M6 GT3. Across the line he goes there. He's going to be very happy with that, I think, because that Burst car was just unstoppable today. Mika Happinen then with the Nita Velix car. This is going to be great news for their championship prospects. This is going to rocket them up the order as they come home in 3rd place this evening. Then it will be the HM Engineering, who I believe have already crossed the line. I think most of the cars have crossed the line now, just because of how short a lap it is. But this is the car of the day. Just an unstoppable drive and a well-deserved win.
Yeah, certainly that was such good performance from both of those drivers, and especially from Yene in the beginning. But then we cannot put down Mrocek. He jumped into the car in very difficult conditions. Obviously, he had no sort of practice as such, because you can never, even if you're trying to replicate it, you just can't, you can never practice exactly how it is going to be on race day. And he jumped into that, didn't have the warm up, and he got straight into it, kept the pace, and managed to get that win from Evolution as well. So really good. So here you can see 144 laps in the end. Burst Esport getting the victory from Evolution Motorsports and Cetres Nitavelix for your podium. So a very good podium indeed. HM Engineering with an incredible race there in the number 33. Their first points of the season, and it is a 4th place. Speedy Might, the number 91, in 5th place. That was a really good drive by Ememwen and then also Sansano to bring that one home. Georgi Nedev bringing home Go Team Racing once again in about 6th place. In fact, they might have been 6th place every single race so far this season. They're always in around that area. That's pretty much where they're aiming to be this season. Then Scuderia Mascala, amazing result from them, 22nd in the championship and finally getting a nice result in 7th place. Williams Esports Chill Blast, unfortunately having that spin on lap 1, but then recovering back to 8th place. I think they would be fairly happy with that, despite being a couple of laps down in the end to the leader. Then Pescara in 9th place after a couple of issues in that lag incident at the end, and then Cetres Nitavelix in the other car, the number 60, getting that 10th place. But Hugo, I'd say that was actually a fairly interesting race. So many spins, so much action, and it's almost a little bit weird in some ways because of how the race went, but it certainly was a very fun and enjoyable race.
Yeah, it was really unpredictable. You didn't know which battle would be next. And also in those battles, you couldn't be sure who would come out on top. I mean, sometimes you'd have a car that wasn't in the battle at the start go out and lead those few cars at the end of it. And the weather being unpredictable really threw a spanner into the works. It changed things up and it made the strategies even more difficult, which meant that these battles became even more unpredictable. But the driving, I think, for the most part, really good and just a fantastic race all round.
Yeah, we're gonna get an interview from Yene and David Mocek. We'll just bring them into the commentary booth, and then we'll get a nice interview from these guys. So obviously, Burst will be still leading the standings as well. They already were before this race, and then obviously getting another win today. That's 3 wins out of the first 4 races of the season. So halfway through the season, and they're certainly looking very good. So Yane, we'll start with you. Obviously, getting that pole position, leading away at the start. How was that opening stints in those mixed conditions?
Yeah, those were the conditions that I really love. A really great part of our rFactor too. Yeah, I expected it to be much worse or much less enjoyable with Williams trying to eat me alive. But then they had the bad luck in turn 1, and I could just do my own thing. Although, yeah, with the showers coming and going and track drying and getting wet again, we did not know what to do. And in the end, yeah, it turned out to be the best decision to not do anything with the strategy, to just keep driving.
Did you have to sort of change your plan a little bit? Because obviously with the rain, the stint length gets increased so much. Did you have to sort of change your plans on the fly, or were you just seeing how it goes?
Well, the main plan was to do 3 stints or 2 stops. So we would, of course, prefer to make stints long enough to at least like 45 minutes, so that we could do only 2 more stints after the first. But I mean, it's hard to talk about the plans, because every lap the plan could have changed if the rain intensity increased. But in the end, it was just all the time just low enough that I could just keep going on the softs.
Well, yeah, you did a very good job. And David, will come to you. Obviously, you had to jump into the car not really knowing the conditions that much. I mean, obviously Yene would have been giving you feedback, but you know, you had to sort of get up to speed very quickly. How was that? Because obviously that's quite a tricky thing to experience.
Hi. Yeah, I was a bit lucky because we've picked wet tires for my stint. So, like for wet tires, it doesn't really matter to. It's not really that important to stay within the dry line. So I think it was fairly easy actually, because the gap to the second car was, I don't know, like half a minute or something. I think at that moment we were behind them, but they still had to do some pits, like I think a pit stop. So no, I'm lucky that Yearly did such an amazing job in the quali and then during his stint, because for me it was just I just had to bring the car home basically.
And do you enjoy the rain? Well, this is all a question to both of you. Do you prefer the wet races where it's a bit unknown?
Yes, actually, I think the rFactor 2 has a great feature. Like you need to sort of cool down the tires on the straights when it's like when the track is drying up and you're on the wet. So I was trying to do it, and yeah, I mean, it feels great. I think we should use the like real weather more often in the official events. But yeah, it is how it is.
Well, yeah, certainly. You two have done a very good job, and also your teammates over the course of this first half of the season. So you're going to have a very healthy lead in the championship. But so I assume that's really your only goals. But how are you feeling as we now come into the second half of the season?
Well, with Petter and Martin skipping this round, we are, I don't know how much ahead, but I guess it's quite a lot. So I think we can sort of, we are going to, I guess we are going to prepare for the next races, but because you still want to win them. But yeah, we are very in a very comfortable situation at the moment. So I guess we just need to score points each race and we should be good.
Well, congratulations to both of you, and we'll be
Thank you.
hopefully speaking to you again in the after the 3 hours of Indianapolis in a few weeks' time. So good luck for that one, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Hugo, yeah, we've had the first half of the season then, and we're coming to the 3 hours of Indianapolis in a few weeks' time, which is certainly going to be quite an interesting track as well. A little bit tight in some areas on the 27th of February. So yeah, we look forward to that one. But this was certainly a good race, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a fantastic race, and its next race is going to be a very different nature of circuit, and it's going to be interesting to see how the teams adapt, because it's of course a road and oval combination compared to what we've had so far, which is just road tracks. So it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers adapt, how the teams adapt, and what also the balance of performance brings. But today, I think we just had a fantastic race. We were really lucky with the conditions, and the driving was excellent as well. So yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, then obviously we finished the season off with the 3 hours of Bathurst, Suzuka, and Spa-Francorchamps. So it's going to be a very exciting end to the season on the 22nd of May. So yeah, there's it from here in Portland. We thank you very much for watching. Obviously, in 2 weeks' time as well, we will have the 8 hours of Indianapolis for the Virtual Endurance Championship as well. So do tune in to that. But until then, we wish you a very warm goodbye.